Chapter 2239. According to the legend, the Misty Rain Pavilion had close to 100 beautiful headliners holding soul treasure-grade musical instruments. They were known as the 100 Fairies of the Pear Garden. However, no one had seen them or performed them publicly. There were only rumors. Everyone knew that the Smiling Daughter Pavilion was founded by the Azure Lotus Fairy. She was also known as the Azure Lotus Sword Immortal. Since the establishment of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, there had been an unparalleled sword dance passed down. However, the Azure Lotus Sword Immortal's consummate skill, the Azure Lotus Sword Dance, rarely appeared. This was because this Azure Lotus Sword Dance required 100 talented women to perform it at the same time. Only then could it achieve the scene of an azure lotus blooming and breaking out of the moon. Today, these two legendary existences suddenly appeared and stood at loggerheads. This caught everyone off guard. To think that such a scene, which they had never imagined, would appear before them by chance. Although these two factions could tear down half of Yen City if they fought, many people felt that the commotion was not big enough. However, who knew how many people felt that it was not lively enough, hoping for a fight to break out? The atmosphere turned tense. It was like a fight would break out at a moment's notice. The black and white eggs protected Xiao Chun at his sides. Lu Benwei stood in front of him, a fiendish light flickering on the tip of his saber. The 100 fairies of the Pear Garden each held a soul treasure-grade musical instrument as they stood there. All of them were beautiful women with unparalleled grace. Yuan Jun stood in the middle, and Ling Yu supported his drunkard beggar. They stood far away, frowning heavily. The lineup on the other side looked even more horrifying. The three princes gathered together, the elders of the four ancient noble clans, the many Smiling Daughter Pavilion's sovereign emperor guards, and a group of white-clad women descended with flowers. The first Prince Wang Fei, the 13th Prince Wang Yi, and the 8th Prince Wang Feng all showed extremely unsightly expressions. The three were already in a predicament. Originally, they thought that nothing would go wrong, that they could easily deal with Xiao Chun. To think that they caused such a huge commotion. Not to mention killing Xiao Chun, the three might not even be able to retreat safely. Xiao Chun's saber strike startled the entire imperial capital, Yen City. It would definitely startle the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs. If the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs could not kill Xiao Chun before the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs arrived, this operation would suffer a great loss. At this moment, the veiled woman completely ignored Xiao Chun. She stared at Su Yi and said coldly, "A bunch of bitches. Get out of the Smile Pavilion now, or you'll have to bear the consequences." Su Yi sneered and said, "Bear the consequences? Go ahead and try. Let's see whose consequences will be more severe." After Su Ye's appearance, the situation, which was supposed to force Xiao Chun into a corner, turned into a confrontation between the two women. Yuan Jun, who was the focus of everyone's attention earlier, was immediately ignored. The speed at which the situation changed was simply flabbergasting. The three princes exchanged glances with one another. They could feel the anxiety and impatience in each other's eyes. Su Ye's gaze met the veiled woman's. She could clearly feel the enmity between the two of them, as well as their unyielding auras. "Fine. Since you don't want to leave, then don't even think about leaving." The veiled woman's eyes were filled with killing intent as she coldly spoke. The 100 white-clothed women behind her pointed their swords forward at the same time. Dang. The 100 fairies of the Pear Garden scattered, holding flutes, jade flutes, pipas, all sorts of sounds rang out at the same time. A battle that was destined not to end peacefully started. The hundreds of soul tool instruments played at the same time. The fairy basket bloomed, and the white-clothed women danced with the swords. Boom. In just an instant, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, which had stood for many years, shook. The shock wave spread out, shaking half of the imperial capital. The many powerful experts hidden in closed-door cultivation in the imperial capital all opened their eyes at the same time. Doubt flashed in their eyes as they looked at the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Whoosh. However, when the two sides clashed, they were suppressed for only an instant. A sword fell through the cracked roof of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, looking like a flaming star. When the sword landed and stabbed into the ground, the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden and the white-clothed women all moved back at the same time. Yin Imperial Sword. When the three princes saw this sword, their complexions instantly paled. Without much thought, they knelt on the ground with a plop. Only one person in the imperial capital Yen City could swing this sword, the current Yen Huang. This sword flew in from the imperial palace. Yen Huang did not show himself, but it felt like he was there in person. The flaming Yen Imperial sword trembled slightly, and a hazy sword intent spread out. Everyone in the entire Smiling Daughter Pavilion felt a huge pressure. They could not help wanting to prostrate and kneel. The might and pressure contained in the sword intent was not just the sword itself, but the dynasty's accumulations. Plop. Plop. More people knelt, not daring to raise their heads. Wanting to face this superior grade soul tool containing the dynasty's luck in Yen City was simply too difficult. Even a sovereign emperor would find it hard to endure the dynasty's might and pressure. Whoosh. 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 However, just as this sword intent was about to reach its peak and make everyone submit, it suddenly hummed and fell silent. Doubt flashed in the three princes' eyes at the same time. However, there was no time to think. A group of stern-looking old men appeared on the roof of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. The leader had white hair and a white beard. His expression was solemn, and he exuded a vast imperial might that deterred others from looking at him directly. "Greetings, imperial ancestor," the princes said respectfully at the same time. This group of old men were the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs, who had arrived late. The leader was the Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor, a royal court patriarch who was even more senior than Yen Huang. Humph. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor snorted coldly and said, "Lock them up. The Imperial Ancestral Temple will whip them. None of you can escape." How embarrassing. Right after the Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor spoke, he looked around and fixed his gaze on Xiao Chun. Then he walked over. "Lord Xiao, how do you intend to deal with this matter?" As the Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor spoke, the group of patriarchs tied up the three princes with special chains. As soon as the chains wrapped around their bodies, electricity crackled, and the three princes let out blood-curdling screams. No matter what, Xiao Chun was the Heavenly Alliance's envoy inspector. He represented the Heavenly Alliance in the Yanwu dynasty. No matter how weak the Heavenly Alliance was in the imperial capital, Yen City, it was a bona fide superfaction. Its overall strength surpassed that of the Yanwu dynasty in the Great Thousand Realms. If they could kill Xiao Chun silently, it would not be a big deal. However, publicly killing the Heavenly Alliance's envoy inspector would be equivalent to slapping the Yanwu dynasty's face, placing the Yanwu dynasty in an extremely disadvantageous position. Hence, the moment the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs appeared, they immediately detained the three princes, not giving them any face at all. When the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs arrived before Xiao Chun, they were very polite. Although the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs were polite, they were very shrewd. The moment they spoke, they directly handed this matter to Xiao Chun to deal with. As long as Xiao Chun was willing to deal with it, this matter would not startle the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters, and it would not be a big deal. Xiao Chun's thoughts raced. He knew that the situation was now reversed. At the very least, that was how it looked on the surface. "It's fine. The three princes and I were just drinking and chatting. Our words were somewhat intense, that's all. However, this Smiling Daughter Pavilion slandered me, saying that I stole their imitation holy tool and tarnished my reputation. They even attacked me. This truly chills this Xiao." Xiao Chun knew very well that while this Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs appeared strict and merciless to the three princes, in reality, it would not hurt them at all. In reality, it wouldn't hurt him at all. It was just for show. The one that could truly be suppressed was still the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. "Alright, I understand. I'll help you make the decision." The Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor turned his head and looked at the veiled woman. "Pavilion Master Yang, since you are responsible for this matter, you need to make up for it. If you feel dissatisfied, you can tell me now." The white-haired old man clearly wanted to keep the peace. Since Xiao Chun had already placed the blame on her, the Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor turned his head back and looked at the veiled woman. Under such circumstances, there was no way for her to explain herself, no matter how unwilling she was. Could she really say that this was planned by the three princes? The imperial ancestral temple's patriarchs appeared strict to the princes, but in reality, they were the most protective of their own. Even Xiaochen said that the three princes were not wrong. Even if she did not want to take the blame, she had to. Under the veil, Pavilion Master Yang gritted her teeth. She was so angry that her face nearly turned black. After calming herself for a long time, she said, "This Pavilion Master is not dissatisfied. Lord Xiao is right. This little girl did slander Lord Xiao. I apologize to Lord Xiao here. As for the shock that Lord Xiao suffered today, I am willing to compensate Lord Xiao with 30% of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's monthly income." Before Xiaochen could say anything, Suyi smiled softly and said, "In that case, I will reluctantly forgive you on behalf of Lord Xiao. Pavilion Master Yang, you have to pay attention to your mouth in the future. Ha 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 ha." As Suye's bell-like laughter rang out, this storm finally came to an end. However, based on the veiled woman's gritted teeth, it was clear that this grudge would not end here. Chapter 2240. The blazing yen imperial sword shocked everyone present. Kneeling on the ground were the three princes bound by lightning chains, and Tower Master Yang, who was forced to apologize. There was also the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's ceiling crack, which no one knew when it would be repaired. No one expected a mere one-vein sovereign emperor to cause the three princes to suffer, forcing the Smiling Daughter Pavilion to apologize and make amends. The Heavenly Alliance's envoy inspector, Xiaochen, would definitely shake the imperial capital tonight. It was hard to imagine that if not for the yen imperial sword that flew over, this storm would not have happened. If not for the flying yen imperial sword, what would have happened in the end? The white-haired old man looked at Xiaochen and asked, "Lord Xiao, what do you think?" After all, it was only Su Yi who expressed her opinion. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor needed Xiaochen's opinion first. Pavilion Master Su's opinion is my opinion as well. Xiaochen managed to survive a certain death situation, and even made the veiled woman suffer and apologize. Xiaochen did not feel any dissatisfaction. This already exceeded his expectations. In reality, even if Xiaochen wanted to ask for more, he could not ask for too much. After all, it was the yen imperial sword that was stabbed into the ground. The ones in control of the situation were the Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor. The imperial capital Yen City belonged to the royal court, after all. Although Xiaochen was righteous, this was a world where the strong ruled. It was already not easy to gain such benefits. This time, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion and the three princes went for wool and came home shorn. They would definitely become a laughingstock and would not dare to make a move on him for the time being. The 7 merchant associations would also have to reconsider. However, Xiaochen looked at the dejected Ling Yu. He had wronged his martial nephew. He could not interfere with headliner Ling Long's matters. If Xiaochen used this opportunity to force the veiled woman to give up on the wedding, it would be too rude. Xiaochen remained rather calm. The accumulations of the Pleasure Quarter Alliance were not as simple as he imagined. This time, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's apology was to give the Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor face, not Xiaochen. If Xiaochen pushed too hard, it might have the opposite effect. Even now, Xiaochen did not know how many trump cards the Smiling Daughter Pavilion had revealed. Goodbye. Many thanks to Senior for upholding justice. This Xiao will remember this. Xiaochen cupped his fists at the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man smiled faintly and said, "Take care. The Yenwu dynasty has always had a good relationship with the Heavenly Alliance. This little favor is nothing." Xiaochen's group left the Smiling Daughter Pavilion in a grandiose manner. Of course, they didn't go through the main entrance. Instead, they went through the hole that the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden created with their musical instruments. Yuanjin thought for a moment before following them. Then, the 3 presidents who had signed a new contract with Xiaochen left at the same time. "Tower Master Yang, I have wronged you this time," the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarch asked softly as he glanced at the veiled woman. This time, everyone could tell that the Smiling Daughter Pavilion took the blame for the royal court, pushing away all responsibility. The Smiling Daughter Pavilion could only apologize and swallow their anger. The veiled woman said indifferently, "Ancestor is too serious. This time, I was rash and didn't handle things properly. Let's drop this matter for now. I still wish for sect Ancestor to preside over the wedding of the first prince and headliner Ling Long." The white-haired old man hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I agree to this. This could be considered a form of compensation." The Imperial Ancestral Temple was on the same side as the first prince in the first place. However, it was inconvenient for them to preside over the wedding. If not for today's matter, the white-haired old man would not have appeared in public for this matter. Take the three princes away. After whipping them, ground them for half a month. Yes. The royal court's people left. Before they left, the white-haired old man drew the Yin Imperial sword. Just as he was about to put it in the sword box, his expression changed. Unexpectedly, a tiny crack appeared on the Yin Imperial sword. The crack looked unremarkable, but it was clearly new. It was normal for a soul tool to crack. As long as one fought, it would be hard to avoid damage. Even the Yin Imperial sword was no exception. Historically, the Yin Imperial sword had even shattered. However, as long as the dynasty's luck did not decline, it could always be repaired. However, the problem was, when had anyone clashed with the Yin Imperial sword in this place? The veiled woman looked suspiciously at the white-haired old man. However, the other party hid his expression well and left in a rush, not saying a word. After the royal court's people left, the extraordinarily bustling Smiling Daughter Pavilion slowly quietened down. The veiled woman instructed. Then, she quickly headed for the depths of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion with a rushed expression. Unlike what many people imagined, the outside world was filled with lush mountains, clear waters, and drifting white clouds. The depths of the core seemed to be filled with a sinister aura that made one shudder. A moment later, at the core of the small world, the veiled woman saw 9 old men guarding the core of the formation. There was a total of 9 people. The leader was a peak sovereign emperor, and the other 8 were peak 6-vein sovereign emperors. With these 9 people guarding this place, as long as the core formation was not completely destroyed, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion would not fall. This was just the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's strength. The accumulations of the entire Pleasure Quarter Alliance were even more terrifying. The veiled woman looked at the black-clad old man leading the group and said, "Senior Feng, I already told you to kill him at all costs. Even if he really has the Buddhist sect's golden letter. Why did you not do so?" When Yuan Jun appeared earlier, although the veiled woman was startled for a moment, she still made up her mind to kill Xiao Chun. She had already reached the point where she had to kill him. If she did not kill him now, she would not have another chance to do so. It was as the veiled woman expected. First, the fiendish saber disciple Lu Benwei appeared. Then, Su Yi led the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden to charge over. When the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Patriarch appeared, she lost her chance. If Senior Feng had listened to the veiled woman, there might not have been so much trouble. At that time, Xiaochen would have died, and everything would have been set in stone. Even if the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Patriarch arrived, no matter how angry he was, he could only bear the burden in the end. As for how much rage the Heavenly Alliance would feel for a one-vein sovereign emperor, it might not be as terrifying as one imagined. At most, the Heavenly Alliance would come to a compromise and give some benefits to the Heavenly Alliance in the Yenwu dynasty. Pusiai, the black-clad old man, who was about to speak, vomited a mouthful of blood, instantly turning incredibly pale. The veiled woman immediately felt shocked. She quickly asked, "Senior Feng, when were you injured?" Senior Feng was a 7-vein sovereign emperor, a bona fide peak sovereign emperor. How could he have gotten so severely injured without anyone noticing? The veiled woman immediately felt somewhat afraid. Although she felt angry from the start to the end, she had never felt afraid. This was because she knew that the situation had been under her control all along. However, Xiao Chen's resistance was much more intense than she had imagined. However, no matter what, even if Su Yi led the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden over and fought, the veiled woman would not be able to defeat Xiao Chen. She was confident that she would be the winner. But now, Elder Feng had been severely injured without anyone noticing, which made her feel that it was too inconceivable. The black-clad old man shook his head and sighed. I was severely injured the moment Yuanjun appeared. I did not scatter my aura, because Yuanjun appeared. My soul was injured, and I could barely protect myself. If I had not retreated, my divine seal would have been destroyed. Who attacked? I don't know. I really don't know. Shock flashed in the veiled woman's eyes. To think that a bona fide seven-vein sovereign emperor did not even know who injured him. Could it be that an expert stronger than a seven-vein sovereign emperor had been in the small world of mountains and rivers from the start to the end? I will report this matter to the saintess and let her handle it. Elder Feng, you should focus on recuperating. There is no need to think too much. For the first time, the veiled woman felt that things were out of her control. Tonight's events were more unusual than she had imagined. However, it did not matter. The wedding between Ling Long and the first prince had already been announced. All that was left was for the holy daughter to complete her task. Most importantly, the first prince's betrothal gift was in his hands. A key appeared in the veiled woman's hand. It was the key to the immortal palace. We can forget about today's matter. But no matter what, we cannot allow anything to happen to this wedding. Outside the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, Xiaochen took out the ethereal immortal palace key and handed it to Yuanjun. He said softly, "As you wish. I'll return this key to you." Yuanjun smiled faintly as he received it and carefully put it away. Benefactor Xiao is indeed straightforward. I did not accompany you to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion in vain. This little monk will take his leave first. After glancing at Xiaochen, Yuanjun pressed his palms together and chanted a Buddhist name before turning to leave. This monk is a little odd. Su Yi commented softly as she watched Yuanjun leave from the side. Xiaochen shook his head and said, "He is indeed very strange. He is different from all the monks I have seen. Sometimes he does not seem like a monk. Sometimes he seems more like a monk than anyone else. I cannot understand him. However, I have to thank you this time. The 100 fairies of the pear garden really put in a lot of effort for me." Ha ha ha. If it were someone else trying to kill you, I might not have helped you so much. However, if it were that little bitch from the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, I would help you even at the cost of my life. Xiaochen thought to himself, speaking of strange people, you are actually rather strange as well. Speaking of strange people, there is actually a very strange person beside me. Uncle, stop pretending to be drunk. Xiaochen looked at the beggar that Ling Yu was supporting and shook him. In the end, the beggar fell to the ground like mud. Xiaochen bent over and checked the other party's breathing. Then he frowned slightly. You are really drunk. Chapter 2241. He was indeed drunk. Xiaochen's entire body reeked of alcohol. The after-effects of strong wine burn were already completely unleashed in his blood. He was indeed drunk. Xiaochen's entire body reeked of alcohol. The after-effects of strong wine burn were already completely unleashed in his blood. After Xiaochen checked and verified that he was fine, he felt it was somewhat unfortunate. Xiaochen drank so much from heartburn without circulating his cultivation technique. It would be a waste. Big brother. Big brother. Ling Yu shook the beggar, who remained drunk. He could not help looking at Xiaochen helplessly. Martial uncle, big brother is drunk again. That's normal. The number of people who can remain sober after drinking heartburn can be counted on one hand. Xiaochen found this slightly strange. This beggar was truly strange. Even now, Xiaochen felt curious about how the beggar tripped Yuanjun. Yuanjun was a sovereign emperor. Even Xiaochen could not figure out the top true inheritor of the hidden spirit temple. If they really fought, although Xiaochen was confident, it would be hard to say who would win. After all, Xiaochen did not know Yuanjun's strength or how many trump cards he had. However, Yuanjun easily tripped such a top true inheritor. It would be too much of a coincidence to say it was accidental. Originally, Xiaochen wanted to ask the other party about it after he came out. Unexpectedly, he ended up getting drunk. Something's wrong. Is someone paying attention to me? Xiaochen frowned slightly. He felt a pair of eyes staring at him from behind. He activated his divine seal and infused his soul energy into his body. Many people came and went on the streets, watching him from behind. However, very few people could make Xiao Chen feel threatened and activate his divine seal to protect himself. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He stood up and said, "Pavilion Master Su, please help me send Ling Yu and this uncle back to the Misty Rain Pavilion first. You helped me a lot this time. Thank you again." Su Yi did not deny it. She smiled softly and said, "You are too polite." Xiao Chen thought of something. Then he bent over and whispered something into Su Ye's ear. Su Ye's gaze immediately fell on Ling Yu. Her eyes wandered as she revealed a shocked expression. "Don't worry. Leave this to me. Then I'll leave it to you." After watching the 100 fairies of the pear garden, Ling Yu, and the beggar leave, Xiao Chen sighed in his heart. He was not very good at persuading Ling Yu, so he could only ask Su Yi for help. Perhaps she would have some ideas. When the group of people completely disappeared from Xiao Chen's sight, Xiao Chen's expression changed, and he turned around to look. 100 meters, 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 100,000 meters, he saw the owner of that gaze. On top of a tall building, there was a man dressed like a scholar. He looked gentle and refined, and he was waving a folding fan in his hand. With a faint smile, his gaze passed through the crowd and landed on Xiao Chen in the distance. The Heavenly Book Scholar? I forgot that he is also in the Yanwu dynasty. What does this guy want from me? If he doesn't want to expose himself, there are many ways to do so. Since he had chosen to let him sense his gaze, it was clear that he wanted to see him. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Xiao Chen passed through several streets and arrived at a riverside inn. He went straight to the 7th floor. Whoosh! At the railing, the Heavenly Book Scholar closed his folding fan and turned to look at Xiao Chen. Then he extended his hand and said, "Sit." When Xiao Chen sat down, the Heavenly Book Scholar handed him a cup of tea. Then he smiled and asked, "Would you like to read strategy?" Xiao Chen took a sip and said indifferently, "Never mind. I don't want to see you vomit another 3 liters of blood." Xiao Chen recalled that the Heavenly Book Scholar could not read his fate at all. Instead, he ended up significantly injured. "It's fine. This is just a casual reading. I will not observe the Heavenly Tao or read fate. I will only read the words." The Heavenly Book Scholar took out his brush, ink and paper. Then he showed an expression of reluctance. Xiao Chen picked up his brush and hesitated for a moment, not knowing what to write. Previously, Xiao Chen wrote the word moon. "What about this time?" "Up to you. Write whatever you want." Xiao Chen thought of Ling Yu's matter. Then he stopped hesitating and wrote the word love. Love. The Heavenly Book Scholar took a look and smiled. This is a good word. A heart accompanied by a green. As the saying goes, if one's infatuation does not die, the sky will not grow old. At first, you hesitated. However, after you wrote, you did not hesitate at all. This means that you wrote this word on behalf of a friend. Hence, you did not feel any burden and appeared calm. However, you took a long time to finish. This means that you are the same, trapped by love. In the end, you still ended up asking for it yourself. Xiao Chen asked softly, "What was the result?" "I did not observe the Heavenly Tao or read fate. Naturally, I could not get a result." The Heavenly Book Scholar shrugged with a smile, appearing helpless. Xiao Chen immediately lost interest. Not wanting to waste words, he asked directly, "Why are you looking for me?" "Originally, I was preparing to look for you today. Unexpectedly, you caused such a huge commotion in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. It can be considered a coincidence, right? I would like to ask if you still have an ethereal immortal palace key. Are you willing to give it to me? We can discuss any price." A bright light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. Then he said in understanding, "You are a diviner. You should know where the ethereal immortal palace will appear, right?" The Heavenly Book Scholar smiled and said, "The diviners of the various dynasties can predict that the ethereal immortal palace will appear in the Yanwu dynasty. Naturally, I am no exception." "What is the exact location?" The Heavenly Book Scholar smiled but did not answer. "If you know, someone will take the initiative to tell you. If you cannot, no one will tell you." The Heavenly Book Scholar spoke in riddles, similar to what Yuanjun said. Xiao Chen thought to himself, to put it bluntly, I do not have the conditions. However, one of the conditions is definitely the ethereal immortal palace key. As for the other conditions, I do not know. The Heavenly Book Scholar asked, how about it? Have you considered giving the key away? This ethereal immortal palace key is not that important to you. The blood-soaked dragon emperor had used the wings of time sealed in the ethereal immortal palace. How could it not be important? However, there were rumors of the ethereal immortal palace appearing from time to time. However, the prophecies had never been accurate. Indeed, Xiaochen did not value the ethereal immortal palace, so he tried to get some information out of the other party. That's right. This ethereal immortal palace key is not that valuable to me. However, it should not be that important to you. I can give it to you. However, you have to tell me who you are buying it for. The Heavenly Book Scholar frowned slightly. After some thought he said, I can't say that. Right after the Heavenly Book Scholar spoke, he felt that something was wrong. Then he realized that he had fallen for a trap. Right after the Heavenly Book Scholar spoke, he felt that something was wrong. Then he realized that he had fallen for a trap. Now that the Heavenly Book Scholar said that, this was equivalent to telling the other party that he, the Heavenly Book Scholar, was buying the ethereal immortal palace key for someone else. Xiaochen smiled and said, in that case, let me guess. Who instructed you to do this? It looks like there is no need for further discussion. Brother Xiao has no intention of giving it to me. Consider it as my intrusion. Please go back. I will visit another day. The Heavenly Book Scholar interrupted Xiaochen. Then he smiled faintly and stood up to send off the guest. You are too polite. The Misty Rain Pavilion welcomes you at any time. Xiaochen revealed a smile and turned to leave, heading downstairs. When Xiaochen reached the blind spot, his expression suddenly changed. The instant he put on the Death God mask, he executed the life bestowal spell. Immediately, the dust in the air formed a figure as Xiaochen's hand seals changed. This figure looked exactly like Xiaochen, a fake. Up in the pavilion, the Heavenly Book Scholar watched as Xiaochen left. He frowned heavily in disappointment. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen showed no intention of selling it, not even stating a price. Dong, dong, dong. Footsteps rang out, and a person in battle armor walked over from behind. This person looked valiant and had a resolute face. This person exuded an intense killing chi. This strong killing chi even suppressed the Heavenly Book Scholar's sovereign might. Can this person be trusted? The person asked as he stood beside the Heavenly Book Scholar, looking at Xiaochen's back as well. His voice was hoarse and grave. The Heavenly Book Scholar turned to the side and fanned himself with his folding fan. Fortunately, I met him once 10 years ago. He is a person of character. However, he has a cautious nature and hides his pride. He has a pure heart. I expected him to reach where he is now. However, I sense the aura of a demonic Tao cultivator from him. The person said, enunciating every word. The Heavenly Book Scholar felt slightly startled. Ninth Prince, why do you say that? The person who arrived was the Ninth Prince, who often led troops to guard the borders. No wonder his killing chi was so intense. The Heavenly Book Scholar felt slightly startled. Ninth Prince, why do you say that? I frequently fight with the people of the abyssal underworld and the Xiaowu dynasty's demonic Tao experts. Sometimes I do not need much evidence, just my intuition, the Ninth Prince explained. Is that so? In that case, it looks like it is correct. However, there are many righteous Tao cultivators who cultivate demonic Tao techniques. He is still a choice, the Heavenly Book Scholar said slowly as he tapped his left palm with the folding fan in his hand. Big brother, for the sake of obtaining the Pleasure Quarter Alliance's support, he actually used the ethereal immortal palace keys as a betrothal gift. This is simply unexpected. This is like inviting a wolf into the house. The Ninth Prince sighed, worry flashing in his eyes. The Heavenly Book Scholar nodded and said, hence I feel that time is tight. The 7 ethereal immortal palace keys already have owners. In the end, Xiaochen is still a choice. The Ninth Prince frowned and said, in the end I still do not trust people who cultivate demonic Tao techniques. Unless absolutely necessary, I will not choose him. I will have to trouble you to continue searching for me. The Heavenly Book Scholar sighed softly. I will do my best. As the two spoke, they were extremely careful, using their soul energy to check the surroundings. However, the two had not expected Xiao Chun, who had not left, to hear all this. Chapter 2242. In the shadows of the pavilion, Xiao Chun, who had heard the conversation between the heavenly book scholar and the ninth prince, did not linger, leaving quietly. Now that it was daytime, the death god mask's effect was much weaker. However, Xiao Chun used a trick to make the ninth prince and the heavenly book scholar think that he had already left. That was why he hadn't been discovered. If he continued to stay here, it would be hard to guarantee that something unexpected would happen. To think that the ninth prince is behind the heavenly book scholar. However, I know nothing about the ninth prince. On the way back to the Misty Rain Pavilion, Xiao Chun thought to himself, feeling that he had grasped some clues. The crown prince's betrothal gift was a key to the ethereal immortal palace. And now the ninth prince was also searching for a key to the ethereal immortal palace. Could it be that the ethereal immortal palace was under the control of the ethereal immortal palace? It was very likely that there were two conditions. One was to possess the key to the ethereal immortal palace, and the other was to obtain the help of a prince. Only by fulfilling these two conditions could one know where the immortal palace would appear, and obtain the opportunity to enter. If that was the case, he would have no choice but to be involved in the battle for the position of crown prince. In this era of great competition, we have to fight even if we don't want to. Xiao Chun thought to himself, thinking that it was time to make a choice. The ninth prince did not think highly of him. However, the ninth prince was not the only one in the imperial capital, Yin City. There were many people that he could work with. He returned to the Misty Rain Tower. When Xiao Chun saw Su Yi, she was trying to console Ling Yu. However, based on Ling Yu's expression, the effect was not good. The beggar was sleeping on the bed. Emo Chun Bauer and the others were at the side. Big brother Xiao, you're finally back. Emo Chun stood up to welcome Xiao Chun. Clearly, they already knew what happened in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. I met an old friend and was delayed for some time. However, I unexpectedly learned some things. Ling Yu, do you want to hear them? Xiao Chun said softly as he looked at Ling Yu. Martial uncle, does it have anything to do with me? Xiao Chun nodded. It does have something to do with you. I just learned that the Smiling Daughter Pavilion married headliner Ling Long to the first Prince Wang Fei because of an ethereal immortal palace key. Immortal palace key? A bright light flashed in Su Ye's eyes. She said in realization, no wonder, no wonder. Although the first prince had a close relationship with the Pleasure Quarter Alliance, the Pleasure Quarter Alliance was far from fully supporting him in the fight for the position of crown prince. His relationship with the other princes was also not bad. It looks like this wedding has to go through. Headliner Ling Long will have to marry the first prince even if she doesn't want to. She is a chess piece representing the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Ling Yu smiled bitterly, remaining silent. This news was undoubtedly adding hail to snow. However, Emo Chen's eyes lit up. She smiled and said, Ling Yu, did you not understand what Big Brother Xiao meant? Somewhat confused, Ling Yu asked. What do you mean? Emo Chen smiled softly and said, that is to say, headliner Ling Long did not covet the first prince's position and authority. She was forced to do so because of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's agreement with the first prince. Since the first prince handed over the ethereal immortal palace's key, he definitely wants the Smiling Daughter Pavilion to make a statement. To let everyone know that the Pleasure Quarter Alliance is on the first prince's side. Hence, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion withdrew headliner Ling Long. This wedding is a ceremony for both sides to form an alliance. Hearing that, Ling Yu revealed a look of joy on his face. However, it quickly dimmed. Even so, what can I do? Let's not talk about this for now. Let me ask you something. What is your relationship with headliner Ling Long? Xiao Chun asked the question that everyone was curious about. Many gazes immediately landed on Ling Yu. This was especially so for Su Yi. She seemed to be very interested in this matter. She propped up her chin with both hands as she watched without blinking. Back then, Martial Uncle brought me to the Soaring Dragon Great Realm. When I saw headliner Ling Long, I had a good impression of her. Later, I stayed there and learned the pipa from elder sister Ling Long for 3 months. It was just 3 short months, but it felt like 3 lifetimes. I was very happy during that period. However, I still had to return to the sect. The night before I left, she entrusted her life to me. I agreed to come to the imperial capital Yen City to look for her 5 years later. At this point, Ling Yu blushed slightly, appearing somewhat embarrassed. However, his face showed joy from the memories. Thinking about it, that period of time was indeed a beautiful time for him. One that was hard to forget. What happened after that? What happened after that? Suyi asked in anticipation, her eyes bright like pearls as she smiled. 5 years later, I became the youngest star venerate in the Grave Sea cluster. Martial Uncle Sect Master tried to get me to stay. As long as I stayed, the Purple Flame Sect would make me the Sect Master. However, I fell in love with elder sister Ling Long, so I rejected Martial Uncle. At that time, I was very spirited and very cocky. Many of the older generation experts in the Grave Sea cluster could not last 10 moves against me. I wanted to give her a surprise, so I did not tell her and came to the imperial capital Yen City alone. At this point, the smile on Ling Yu's face slowly disappeared. His grave expression contained a trace of regret and intense bitterness. Xiao Chun and the others exchanged glances. They more or less understood some things. In hindsight, Ling Yu was indeed a once-in-a-thousand-year genius in the Grave Sea cluster. Ling Yu also had a rather thin Great Desolate Ian bloodline. At such a young age he already advanced to Star Venerate. At that time he would have been brimming with confidence. He wanted to come to the imperial capital Yen City and show off his abilities, making a name for himself and obtaining beauties at the same time. However, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the imperial capital Yen City was the most bustling city of the Tianyuan Empire. With Ling Yu's talent and strength in the Grave Sea cluster, he instantly paled in comparison when he came to the imperial capital Yen City. Even sovereign personages did not dare to speak loudly in the imperial capital Yen City. What more an insignificant star venerate? One could easily imagine how disappointed Ling Yu was. I sneaked into the Smiling Daughter Pavilion and saw Ling Long. She stood in the clouds. After she finished her song, the applause rang out endlessly. Countless primeval heavenly pills flew over like ribbons. There was no lack of nobles, holy venerates, sovereign personages, and even sovereign emperors. At that time, I felt somewhat timid. I could only afford a seat in the corner, where I could only look up at her in the clouds. I left her a letter and left. I wanted to come back and look for her 5 years later. I felt that a mere star venerate was not good enough for her. Ling Yu's voice sounded somewhat choked. At that time, he must have been incredibly depressed. Back in the Soaring Dragon Great Realm, he had not sensed the position of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's manager. Only after coming to the imperial capital Yen City did he realize what kind of height Ling Long, whom he had an appointment with, stood. However, I did not expect elder sister Ling Long to find me outside the city. I was so stupid. Back then, I was really stupid. She said that she was willing to leave with me, but I felt that I was not good enough for her, so I made her wait for 5 years. However, when I returned 5 years later, she was not even willing to meet me. At this point, Ling Yu's face filled with pain. His eyes had long since turned moist. You are really stupid. I don't even know what to say about you. You deserve to regret it now. After Suyi heard that, she frowned and cursed Ling Yu. Xiaochen remained silent. However, he could understand Ling Yu. When he came to the imperial capital Yen City from the Grave Sea cluster, he felt like a country bumpkin entering a city. It was like a country bumpkin entering the city. Suyi, who had never experienced it, found it hard to understand the huge impact and incomparable disappointment. The pain was indescribable. Emo-chan said calmly, in my opinion, headliner Ling Long should still be concerned about Ling Yu. Otherwise, he would have been beaten to death in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion already. Suyi nodded softly and said, that's right. You repeatedly went to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion and caused so much trouble. If it were an ordinary person, they would have died several times already. Headliner Ling Long must have instructed them not to harm you. Brat, you are really fortunate. Headliner Ling Long disregarded everything and was willing to leave with you. How much courage does this require? To think that you did not agree. Now that she is not seeing you, she must still be angry. Ling Yu said sullenly. No, I have to meet her. I will only give up if she tells me personally. Ling Yu's sudden outburst startled Su Yi, Emo-chan and the others. If you want to meet her, tonight is the best time. Right now, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion is in chaos. Everyone is very busy. It is best to sneak in, Su Yi analyzed calmly. Xiaochen stood up and said, I'll bring you there. Martial uncle. Ling Yu immediately felt so touched that he wanted to cry, not knowing what to say. Xiaochen said softly, since you address me as martial uncle, I will definitely be the matchmaker. Back then, I prepared to give you a pipa as a token of love. I still hope that you can personally give it to her. I want to go as well. Su Yi rolled her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. Visiting a brothel? I want to go as well. Ha ha ha. You people are all very bad. While this uncle is drunk, you want to visit a brothel again. Hee hee. This uncle is awake. Ha ha ha. The beggar, who was sleeping like a dead pig on the bed, suddenly said as he stood up. Xiaochen did not find this strange, so he looked at Emo-chan. Emo-chan said softly, Bauer and I will not be going. Elder sister Su Yi already handed most of the matters of the Merchant Association to me. Later, I still have to discuss it with the association chiefs of the Nine Cauldron Pavilion and Linlang Pavilion. Xiaochen looked at Su Yi with some surprise. Unexpectedly, Su Yi relinquished her authority so early. Don't look at me. Why would I be unhappy if I can be more free? Su Yi smiled faintly, confusing everyone, not knowing what she was thinking. Let's go then. Chapter 2243. The Imperial Capital, Yen City, Smiling Daughter Pavilion. In the past, the lights would never go out, and the traffic would always be heavy. But tonight, the bustling scene no longer existed. Xiao Chun broke the roof of the pavilion with one saber strike, opening a crack in it. The various auras also damaged the interior of the pavilion. Repairing it would take some time. Now that the place was empty, the place was very busy. Everyone cleaned up the rubble and tidied up the debris. As for the roof, it would take at least 3 days to repair. Such a chaotic situation had not happened in many years. Now that they were cleaning up the mess, several guards even joined in. Xiaochen, Su Yi the beggar, and Ling Yu arrived outside the Smiling Daughter Pavilion again. There was a large hole at the side of the pavilion. This was the hole that Su Yi led the 100 fairies of the pear garden to break open. When looking at it from the inside, it did not seem like much. However, from the outside it looked very exaggerated. Su Yi looked at her masterpiece, feeling very satisfied. This hole will take at least 10 days to repair. The Misty Rain Pavilion's business should be several times better in the next few days. I have to consider increasing the price. Xiaochen soared into the air and quickly circled the Smiling Daughter Pavilion in the dark night. He came and went like the wind. By the time he landed, he had already found a breach. Come with me. Whoosh. The figures of the group flashed as they followed closely behind Xiaochen, dodging the waves of guards and restrictions. Normally, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion was heavily guarded. It would be impossible to enter so easily. Yet the group managed to break in so easily. Which floor is headliner Ling Long on? Xiaochen asked. The east side of the top floor. I know which room it is. The beggar smiled and said. Brat, you are quite thoughtful. You did not get beaten up for nothing. You finally figured out the room. This time, you can go in boldly. If anyone dares to beat you up, Big Brother will help you chase them away. Ling Yu smiled bitterly and said, Big Brother, it is better for you to stay here. I fear that something might happen to you. The beggar smiled happily and said, Don't worry. Just do what you need to do. Big Brother will not peek. I still have that much character. Let's go. Seizing the gap between the two waves of guards, Xiaochen's figure flashed, and he passed through. The few of them hurried to catch up with him. Following Xiaochen's footsteps, they ascended to the top floor. It could be seen that even though it was a mess at the moment, it was extremely chaotic. However, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's guards did not relax much against these headliners. When he was about to reach the top floor, Xiaochen frowned slightly. There was an array formation. If he didn't have any identification, Then he would have to pay a visit. As long as one stepped onto the top floor, they would immediately be discovered. This was a type of formation used for scouting, so it was difficult to evade. Xiao Chun had the death god mask, so he could go up. However, Ling Yu and the other two would have a hard time. This is enough. The beggar uncle took out a few tokens, and upon closer inspection, he realized that they were the waste tokens that the guards carried with them. It was unknown when he had stolen them. Xiao Chun was slightly startled. When did he make a move? Even he did not sense it. That's amazing. What happened? Su Ye's eyes lit up. Without saying anything, she directly took out a token. It's just SOSO. It's just some small stuff, unorthodox. You won't be interested in it. The beggar uncle smiled happily as he shoved the other two tokens to Xiao Chun and Ling Yu. With the tokens, the group safely made their way to the top floor, not startling anyone. After making many turns in the complicated corridors, they arrived at a room with Ling Long's room token. This is it. Now that they reached this step, Ling Yu felt somewhat hesitant. He could vaguely see a delicate figure through the door and window. Let's go in. The beggar uncle pushed hard, and Ling Yu barged in. Who is it? Just as he closed the door and turned around, a long sword was pressed against his neck. The owner of the sword wore a long white dress. Her pretty face appeared pale and haggard. Headliner Ling Long's complexion was much worse than when she performed in the clouds during the day. With one glance, one would feel heartache. Upon seeing Ling Yu's face, Ling Long was clearly stunned for a moment. Then she startled awake and said, "Why are you here? Quickly leave. Today the tower master is already angry. If you don't leave now, she will really kill you." "Sister Ling Long, come with me. I was wrong. I was really wrong." Ling Yu's heart ached, and he could not help but ask. Ling Long sheathed her sword. She could not bear to look at Ling Yu. She was afraid that if she took a few more glances, she would not be able to control herself. "You can leave." With her back facing Ling Yu, Ling Long sighed softly. "The matters between you and me are already in the past. 5 years ago, I gave you a chance. 5 years later, it's too late. I don't care. No matter what, I will take you away today." Ling Yu did not know where he got the courage to step forward and grab headliner Ling Long's hand tightly. Ling Long still did not turn around. She said softly, "You should leave quickly. The pavilion master will be here soon. I'm taking you with me. What right do you have to bring me along? You are just a mere sovereign personage. How can you compare to the first prince?" Ling Yu was stunned when he heard that. Then his tightly clenched fists slowly relaxed. "How stupid. Can't you just carry me away?" The beggar uncle and Su Yi, who were watching from outside, immediately felt incredibly anxious. If Ling Yu only said these 2 sentences, "Come with me. You have to come with me," they would definitely come here for nothing. Clearly, not saying anything and just carrying her away was the way to go. "However, you do not like him," Ling Yu said with a somewhat trembling voice. "Who said that I do not like him? He is the current first prince and has the support of the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs. Now he has the help of the Pleasure Quarter Alliance. Soon, he will be the crown prince, and I will be the Yingwu dynasty's empress," Ling Long said in a self-mocking manner. When she thought of Ling Yu's laughable reason from 5 years ago, her heart ached again. Back then, Ling Yu's words were very hurtful. Although Ling Long was a girl from a pleasure quarter, she was not someone who coveted glory and the strong. Ling Yu gave up on her efforts just because he could not compare to others. Ling Long really could not think about it. Every time she thought about it, she felt like needles piercing her heart, feeling extreme pain. "That's impossible. You are lying to me." Ling Yu was too straightforward and could not make out the resentment in Ling Long's words. His voice even trembled somewhat. "Why is it impossible? In your opinion, have I not always been such a person?" The people outside felt very anxious, thinking to themselves that they were in trouble tonight. "It's over. This fool is too stupid," Su Yi said softly with a heavy frown. The beggar uncle said, "This won't do. We have to kidnap him. Given my foolish second brother's intelligence, he really cannot continue watching." Just as the 3 were considering whether to charge in and kidnap Ling Long, Soft footsteps rang out from below. The three's expressions changed slightly, and their figures immediately flashed, vanishing quickly. A person came up from the top floor. It was the veiled pavilion master Yang. Her expression did not change, like she was not overly angry over tonight's storm. Soon, the veiled woman arrived at headliner Linglong's door. Just as she was about to knock, she frowned slightly. Linglong quickly looked up and immediately paled in shock. She saw 3 people stuck to the ceiling of the corridor. 3 smiling faces looked at her helplessly at the same time. Su Yi smiled provocatively, Xiaochen smiled bitterly and helplessly, and the beggar uncle teased her like he always did. Plop! Before Linglong could react or scream, the beggar uncle fell and pressed her to the ground. The 2 faces were less than half an inch apart, and the tips of their noses were even touching. Hee hee. How fragrant! The beggar uncle said as he revealed an intoxicated smile after sniffing. The veiled woman was utterly frightened. She reacted only after a while and roared, "Die!" Bang! The strength of a one-veined sovereign emperor instantly erupted as she landed a palm strike on the beggar uncle's chest. Pussy eye. The beggar uncle vomited a mouthful of blood as the impact knocked him back. However, before he flew away, he grabbed the veiled woman's leg with one hand. Then he gently pulled in the air and carried the veiled woman horizontally. The enormous and vigorous force sent the beggar flying far away. As the beggar flew backward, blood still dripped from a corner of his lips. He smiled and said, "So, you like me hugging you? You should have said so earlier. I'll just hug you. Why did you use so much force? You nearly broke my bones." Dong, dong, dong. Such a commotion immediately alerted a large group of guards nearby, and a group of guards instantly rushed over. When the guards saw the beggar uncle hugging the pavilion master, who was leaning against the wall, they were greatly startled. "Let go of the pavilion master. Quickly let go of the pavilion master." The guards showed nervous expressions as if they were facing a great enemy. However, they did not dare to act rashly. The veiled woman in the beggar uncle's embrace felt indescribably strange. When she saw the beggar's smiling face at such a close distance, she was surprised to discover that he was not as unkempt as she imagined. "You want to hug me as well? It's very comfortable. I'll let you try as well." However, just as the veiled woman wanted to take a closer look at the beggar uncle's smiling face through his messy hair, the beggar uncle laughed loudly. The beggar uncle laughed heartily and threw him towards the group of guards. All the guards reflexively rushed forward to catch her. However, they suddenly recalled the pavilion master's esteemed status. If they touched her, the consequences would be dire, so they retreated in fright. Bang! The veiled woman fell heavily to the ground and grunted in pain. "Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. Little bitch, to think that you would have such a day. Ha ha ha." When Su Yi, who was at the side, saw this scene, she bent over and held her stomach. She laughed without restraint, nearly tearing up. The beggar uncle showed an innocent expression as if this had nothing to do with him. Only Xiaochen cautiously looked around. The surrounding guards were already rushing over. Chapter 2244. The top floor of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion was heavily guarded. The strange commotion immediately attracted the experts of various places. Soon they surrounded the entire Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Even with a veil covering her face, Pavilion Master Yang's complexion still showed how dark it was. Normally, she was aloof. To think that a beggar toyed with her like this. She was as embarrassed as she could be. "Capture them. Don't leave a single one alive." The veiled woman did not have any patience at all. After falling to the ground and getting up, her first words were filled with rage. At the same time, she activated all sorts of formations and placed heavy restrictions on her body. Xiaochen immediately felt heavy pressure on his shoulders. A ferocious beast image appeared in the air. The ferocious beast gave off an ancient and great desolate yin aura. Its entire body was scarlet, and its eyes were especially horrifying, looking like huge red lanterns. It had 8 heads and 8 tails. Its body was covered in green moss, withered trees, and desolate wood. Its belly was rotten. The instant the ferocious beast appeared, chains immediately wrapped around the blue dragon divine seal in Xiaochen's soul pool. There were a total of 8 chains. At a glance, they were the 8 snake-like bodies of that strange snake. The 8 heads opened their mouths, looking like they would bite the azure dragon seal to death at any moment. However, the dragon seal gave off a vast dragon might, preventing it from biting down. It could only let out loud roars. Xiao Chen's soul immediately got locked down. No matter how the 3 divine veins under the blue dragon divine seal struggled, they could not break the chains. Oh no, Xiao Chen thought to himself. He felt that something was wrong. In the end, he had been too careless and underestimated the smiling daughter pavilion. Unless he completely refined the 3 soul energies under the divine seal, he would find it hard to break free of the other party's soul sealing formation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, 6 figures quickly appeared from the darkness. They were all great perfection sovereign emperors. The weakest was a 4-vein sovereign emperor, and the strongest was a 6-vein sovereign emperor. However, that mysterious and unfathomable peak sovereign emperor still did not show up. However, even if the peak sovereign emperor did not show up, it would still be difficult to break free. Xiao Chen could activate his great desolate Ian bloodline, and break out while wearing the alloy dragon armor, and holding the soul weapon Heavenly Slayer. However, it would be hard to say for the beggar, Su Yi and Ling Yu. 8-branch soul-locking array. Su Ye's expression was unsightly as she looked at the veiled woman. A trace of astonishment flashed in her eyes. The veiled woman said faintly, "That's right, it's the 8-branch soul-locking array. I've perfected the soul-locking array that your cheap mother failed to set up. Even a peak sovereign emperor would have to kneel properly after entering this primal desolate soul-locking formation. You bitch? Don't mention my mother." Su Ye's eyes immediately turned bloodshot. Her pretty face appeared somewhat crazed. He wanted to charge forward, but after taking just 2 steps, he found himself unable to move an inch forward. An expression of extreme pain appeared on his face. It was as if an invisible snake tail was strangling her neck, making it difficult for her to even breathe. Seeing this scene, the veiled woman revealed a disdainful smile. "Why can't I mention it? You keep saying that I'm a bitch, but your mother is the real bitch." As the smiling daughter pavilion's pavilion master, she was shameless and shameless. She chased after love and married into the sword god's noble clan. Ha! In the end, the sword god did not even give her the status of a concubine. In the end, he even chased her out. Tell me, isn't your mother a bitch? As the veiled woman spoke, she walked over to the feudal Su Yi. Then she teased softly. This is especially so for you. Back then, when you were suffering from a terminal illness, your mother knelt before the Su residence for an entire month to save you. In the end, the Su residence's gates remained closed, and your mother died from anger. Tell me, isn't that bitch? The only reason you're still alive is because of... Enough. Xiao Chen suddenly spoke up, expressionlessly at the side. The veiled woman shifted her gaze and smiled. What qualifications do you have to interrupt now? With just a word from me, I can kill you right now. I said that's enough. Do you hear me? Pa. The veiled woman instantly activated her great desolate Ian bloodline, and an azure-colored dragon roar appeared in her soul pool. Kase. Kasie. The 8 chains instantly broke. Xiao Chen stepped forward and directly slapped the veiled woman, sending her flying. Blood flowed on the veiled woman's face, and a scarlet handprint appeared. The veiled woman screamed, "Kill him!" Whoosh! 6 figures immediately charged at Xiao Chen at lightning speed. These were the 6 great perfection sovereign emperors who had already arrived. Xiao Chen's heart sank. It's over this time. Even if there was only one great perfection sovereign emperor, it would be more than enough to deal with. There were 6 of them. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was in dire straits. This could be considered the price of being rash. However, even if the price was his life, Xiao Chen would not regret slapping the veiled woman. Bitches should be ruthlessly slapped. However, just at this moment, a figure walked over from behind with large strides. This figure placed 2 hands on Xiao Chen's and Su Ye's shoulders. Then, he gently patted Su Ye's shoulder, and the chains in her soul pool immediately shattered as if they had never been there. The 2 of them were gently pulled back by the beggar. Bang! The peak strikes of the 6 great perfections sovereign emperors layered over each other, and landed on the beggar. Pussy. The beggar vomited a mouthful of blood as he went flying again. Uncle! This greatly startled Xiaochen. He quickly helped the beggar up. If the beggar received the peak strikes of 6 great perfection sovereign emperors, he would be severely injured even if he did not die. Hee, you can just leave the beating to Uncle. The bodies of you youngsters are very precious. Unexpectedly, the beggar grinned and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Immediately, his face was covered in blood. He looked like he was heavily injured and could die at any moment, but his mental state was surprisingly good, as if nothing had happened. Not dead. The 6 great perfection sovereign emperors frowned heavily as they guarded the veiled woman. Exchanging glances with one another, they both felt a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Kacha. Headliner Ling Long opened the door and took a look. She asked softly, Pavilion Master Yang, can you let them go? When the veiled woman heard that, she turned around and looked. Then her gaze landed on Ling Yu, who was beside Ling Long. My wedding will be on the 15th of next month. I don't want to cause any more trouble. I hope Tower Lord Yang can respect Ling Long's wishes. Ling Long bowed and said softly. The veiled woman understood Ling Long's meaning. After a moment of silence, she said, Since Ling Long said so, I will not pursue this matter. Big brother, are you all right? On the other side, Ling Yu was startled to see the beggar's dying appearance. Then she quickly walked over. The beggar smiled and said, Ha, I won't die yet. Whoosh. The veiled woman tossed a jade bottle to Xiaochen. Xiaochen stretched out his hand and caught it, finding it somewhat heavy. This is the compensation that the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor promised you. There is a total of 50 tons of origin liquid. Young Master Xiao, I hope that you will take care of yourself. The veiled woman said through clenched teeth. The scarlet handprint on her face had yet to fade, yet she still wanted to give the origin liquid to Xiaochen. Needless to say, it was quite humiliating. However, she had to endure it now. Everything focused on the first prince's wedding. This wedding was very important, and involved too many things. She absolutely could not allow anything to go wrong. No matter how much humiliation and dissatisfaction she felt, she had to endure it for now. Xiaochen looked at Su Ye's condition. Then he looked at the beggar, whose fate was unknown. There was no longer any need for him to remain in this smiling daughter pavilion. He had already met Ling Long. Now that he achieved his purpose, there was no reason for him to remain. He no longer lingered, turned around, and led the group away. The veiled woman turned around and said with a smile, Ling Long, go in first. There is no need for you to worry about the wedding. I guarantee that you will have a grand wedding. At that time, all the Azure Lotus Sword Immortals will dance for you. Your wedding will not only shake Yen City, but also make the entire world envious. Ling Long did not show any joy on her face. She forced a smile and returned to the room. After Ling Long left, the veiled woman's expression changed drastically. She turned around and cursed. Bunch of bastards. What are you all doing? You sneaked into the top floor without anyone noticing. Do you think that you have not embarrassed yourselves enough? What is the point of me raising you? This subordinate knows his mistake. Pavilion Master, please punish me. Useless things. The veiled woman was so angry that she remained silent. She looked at the 6 great perfection sovereign emperors and said, I will leave the remaining 1.5 months to you. Please stay here and guard the door. I do not want any more accidents to happen. Pavilion Master, rest assured. With us around, nothing will go wrong. Su Yi nodded slightly, and a cold look flashed in her eyes. She said softly, If they come again, Xiaochen and Su Yi can teach them a lesson but not kill them. However, Ling Long's lover must be killed for me. Yes. Chapter 2245. Outside the smiling daughter pavilion, Ling Yu carried the beggar on his back, appearing dispirited, like he had lost his spirit, like a walking corpse. The beggar fell asleep again, snoring away on Ling Yu's back, sounding startlingly loud. As Xiaochen walked together with Su Yi, he glanced at her expression. It was not much better than Ling Yu's. Her expression was complicated, and her eyes were still bloodshot, inspiring pity. Thank you for earlier, Su Yi said softly. Suyi asked in a low voice. She was referring to Xiaochen helping her slap the veiled woman. Xiaochen replied calmly. It's nothing. It's just a small matter. Suyi smiled bitterly and said, just a small matter? In my opinion, it is not a small matter. I have long wanted to slap this bitch but could not do it. Sometimes I really envy you. You dared to challenge the entire 10 merchant associations for Wu Meng. Even when you are in dire straits, you still do not lower your head, turning the entire Smiling Daughter Pavilion upside down. As long as you do not go against your heart, you do not seem to fear anything. Xiaochen did not say anything. He knew that at this moment, all he needed to do was be a listener. There was no need to interrupt or say anything more. You have always wanted to know what my relationship with the Su clan is. She is right. I am the abandoned daughter of the Sword God's noble clan's current clan head. Back then my mother made a mistake, marrying this ingrate, this beast that is worse than a beast. After he became the clan head, he divorced my mother. That day, I nearly cried until I went blind. My mother hugged me and kept saying, "Little Ye, don't cry. Mother will bring you home." However, when I arrived at the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, this little bitch, the adopted daughter my mother adopted back then, not only did she not accept my mother, but she even humiliated her. I really saw how sinister the human heart was. Back then, my mother treated her so well, even leaving the Smiling Daughter Pavilion to her management. However, she repaid kindness with enmity, working with that beast of the Su clan to bully my mother. I really can't accept this. I really miss my mother. I still remember that when I was young, she often brought me to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion to watch fireworks and watch performances. Whenever I had any requests, she would excessively fulfill them. However, I did not know that she had already suffered a lot in the Su clan's residence. She would fulfill all my requests. However, I did not know that she had already suffered a lot in the Su clan's residence. He even said that when I grew up, he would teach me how to play the zither and how to practice the sword. Suya's voice gradually became choked with sobs. Her eyes were red from crying, but no tears fell. Her tears kept swirling in her eyes and never flowed down her cheeks. Lingyu, who was in front, turned around. When he saw this scene, he did not know what to do. What are you looking at? You're also a coward. Why don't you bring her out? Can't you see that she's in pain? Suyi glared at Lingyu, scolding him for not living up to expectations. Lingyu's face twitched. Suddenly he cried out in pain, I want to as well. However, how do you expect me to do so? How am I supposed to do that? I do not have a high cultivation like martial uncle. I do not have a great faction like you. I am just a minor character. Without martial uncle's care, I would not even be able to enter the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. How could I not understand what you are saying? However, what can I do? I am in more pain than she is, but I am just a nobody. What can I use to fight with the Smiling Daughter Pavilion? What can I use to fight with the first prince? After saying that, Lingyu broke down and started crying bitterly. Who wouldn't understand this logic? Was Lingyu really stupid? Lingyu was not stupid. However, what was the use of that? It was as Lingyu said. Lingyu was just a minor character. He did not even need the first prince to make an appearance. Anyone in Yen City could trample him to death. What was the use of passion and hot-bloodedness before reality? An impulse welled up in Xiao Chen's heart. It was an impulse that he could not control. After this thought appeared, it became like a great fire, unextinguishable with the wind. Lingyu, martial uncle wants to ask you something. Do you want to marry her? I only want an answer. You don't need to say anything. Just look at me. Not much of an expression could be seen on Xiao Chen's calm face. Only his eyes revealed his expression. Only his eyes, reflecting the cold moonlight, were as hot as fire as he stared at Lingyu. The instant Lingyu raised his head, he met this gaze, which stunned him. Lingyu wanted to say many things. His martial uncle already treated him very well, and helped him a lot. He really did not want to make things difficult for his martial uncle. However, before Lingyu could say anything, Xiaochen said, All right, I know your answer. Don't say anything else. Go back and rest well tonight. Don't run around during this period. Just stay in the Misty Rain Pavilion, and help Pavilion Master Su. Before Xiaoqin could retort, Xiaoqin took the lead and left. After exploring the Smiling Daughter Pavilion that night, the group felt somewhat dispirited. After a night of silence, Xiaoqin split half of the 50 tons of origin liquid with Wu Meng and the others, keeping 25 tons for himself. After 3 days of closed-door cultivation, he used the demonic cloud heaven-swallowing art and the 10,000 dragons art to absorb 25 tons of origin liquid. If it were anyone else, trying to absorb and refine 25 tons of origin liquid in 3 days would be impossible. One would not even dare to think about it. This number was too vast. However, for Xiaoqin, who dual cultivated righteous and demonic, as well as 2 inherited cultivation techniques, this was not difficult. Be it the demonic cloud heaven-swallowing art or the 10,000 dragons art, they both required a large amount of origin liquid. After the demonic cloud heaven-swallowing art's transformation, Xiaoqin's body was different from that of ordinary people. The amount of origin liquid he needed was several times, even dozens of times that of others. After absorbing 25 tons of origin liquid, Xiaoqin's cultivation did not improve much. His divine energy cultivation remained at 1 divine vein. However, Xiaoqin was not in a rush. He continued to focus on refining the 3-vein sovereign emperor's soul energy. As long as he refined the true god's soul energy left behind by the ancient demonic sovereign, his divine energy cultivation would increase naturally. With the increase of divine essence cultivation, everything would follow naturally. The more he accumulated now, the more terrifying the eruption would be when the time came. However, Xiaoqin's cultivation of the 10,000 dragons art reached a bottleneck. Now, with a casual strike, he could materialize the 10,000 dragons picture with the blue dragon as the leader. The blue dragon in the middle was even more eye-catching. If one looked carefully, one would discover that the blue dragon image had become much more realistic, like it could walk out of the picture. The blue dragon image also changed slightly from the initial blue dragon. The most obvious change was that it went from 3 claws to 4. Xiaoqin could clearly feel that as he cultivated the 10,000 dragons art, the potential of his bloodline was continuously dug out. As for the bottleneck, Xiaoqin knew that it was due to the lack of a follow-up cultivation technique. Xiaoqin needed to make time to return to the Blue Dragon Ancient Palace and barge into the Inheritance Hall to obtain the follow-up cultivation technique for the 10,000 dragons art. The 10,000 dragons art would continuously advance, eventually turning into the unprecedented Ancestor Dragon art. However, according to the dragon spirit, no one had truly cultivated the Ancestor Dragon art in the martial epoch. Xiaoqin did not know how strong he was now. Since coming to Yen City, Xiaoqin had not truly fought all out with others. He had not been able to fight to his heart's content. Xiaoqin estimated that if he brought out all his trump cards, an ordinary 4-vein sovereign emperor would not be a match for him. However, it would be somewhat difficult for Xiaoqin to kill a 4-vein sovereign emperor. One would need to be at least a 5-vein sovereign emperor to suppress Xiaoqin. Furthermore, one had to be a sovereign emperor who cultivated a divine vein cultivation technique and possessed a medial-grade soul tool. Otherwise, Xiaoqin could easily leave at any time. As for a 6-vein sovereign emperor, Xiaoqin did not dare to be careless. His chances of victory were slim. A 6-vein sovereign emperor was the highest cultivation of a great perfection sovereign emperor. One more step, and he would be a peak sovereign emperor. Before condensing a 3-vein sovereign emperor's soul energy, it was best not to fight with a 6-vein sovereign emperor. Otherwise, an uncontrollable accident might happen. As for a peak sovereign emperor, Xiaoqin did not dare to think about it. Right now, he was not a match for any peak sovereign emperor. If he ran into one, he would definitely die. His chances of victory were 0. Even if he brought out all his trump cards, he would only be able to severely injure the other party at best. He would not be able to truly deal a heavy blow. I need a killing move that can truly protect my life. Xiaoqin entered deep thought. Be it Dermic World, the Taiji Inyang Flame Diagram, the Fiendish Saber Inheritance, the Mahamaya Abstinence Violation Saber Technique, Firmament's Rage, or the Supreme Dragon Fist. Although they possessed great offensive power and horrifying might, making them unrivaled within the same cultivation realm, they could not allow him to fight against a peak sovereign emperor. Outsiders would definitely be shocked to see such a thought. To them, Xiaoqian's powerful techniques and secret techniques were all killing moves. With these killing moves, even great perfection sovereign emperors would not dare to be too arrogant before Xiaoqian. However, Xiaoqian was too picky. He was only a small perfection sovereign emperor. Yet he wanted to deal with a peak sovereign emperor. Xiaoqian needed to find another killing move to take the initiative. Chapter 2246. Xiaoqian needed to make preparations for his trump card. However, thinking too much was useless. The inheritance hall was not a treasure trove for nothing. It was hard to say whether it existed or not. Xiaoqian set aside his thoughts for now. Then he returned to the Misty Rain Pavilion and saw Su Yi, who was rehearsing. The 100 fairies of the pear garden competed with each other in beauty. There was a dazzling lineup of various musical instruments. There was a vermilion zither, a jade flute, a chime bell, a flower drum, and many others. There were all sorts of musical instruments that one could imagine, both obscure and popular, present. Aside from these, there were also some instruments that Xiaoqian had never seen before, such as the suona, cymbals, and eru. These were rather rare instruments. More bluntly, they were not of high enough quality. They would not appear in the Misty Rain Pavilion, or the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Lord Xiao. Su Yi had good eyes. She noticed Xiaoqian the moment he entered, so she walked over with a faint smile. Suona, cymbals, eru. I don't remember these instruments being here the last time I saw them. Xiaoqian asked out of curiosity. Su Yi smiled faintly and replied. Indeed, there are none. I did not add them on purpose. It's just that very few of these instruments are soul treasure grade. I have been searching for them for many years. Finally, I found them all. You are very persistent. When my mother was alive, her greatest wish was to merge the 10 great ancient music pieces together to create a new piece. My mother actually left most of these instruments to me. I want to fulfill her wish. However, it is very difficult to achieve perfection. Su Yi sighed. If the 100 fairies of the pear garden performed any of the ancient music pieces individually, they would be very good. However, when merging the 10 great ancient music pieces, they found it hard to achieve harmony. There were too many flaws. Many times, they thought of giving up, but they persisted. Xiaoqian took a look and said, if the 100 fairies of the pear garden could perform it once a month, the Misty Rain Pavilion would be able to rival the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. However, you hit it, practicing it day and night, perhaps never completing it. Is it worth it? Su Yi frowned heavily. Then she replied softly, of course it is worth it. This is the only thing I can do for my mother. Unfortunately, I just can't do this well. I don't know when I can perfect the laughing saber and sword. Laughing saber and sword? Xiaoqian recalled that the last time he watched it, the finishing touches were the two women who each held a sword and a saber. The clash of sabers and swords brought out the vast aura of many musical instruments playing at the same time. Su Yi looked at the 100 fairies of the pear garden, who were currently tuning their zither. Then she whispered, that's right. I have already named the song that combines the 10 great ancient music scores, unsheathed saber and sword's laughter. Unfortunately, my bladesman and swordsman are still lacking. Unfortunately, the true crux of this laughing saber and sword is the bladesman and swordsman who appear at the end. Otherwise, it would not be perfect. Xiaoqian fell into deep thought. After a while he said, Pavilion Master Su, if you trust me, I can help you solve this problem. How? For example, I'll personally go on stage and play the role of the last machete man. As for the swordsman, I'll be looking for someone who's on par with me to complete the final theme, the clash of swords and sabers. Su Ye's eyes lit up. She asked incredulously, are you sure? It was indeed too inconceivable. In the end, the path of music was not mainstream in the eyes of cultivators. Those nobles and sovereign emperor experts might like to listen to music, but it was just like how they liked beautiful pets. But this was just like how they liked beautiful pets. If you asked them to perform on stage, it was almost impossible for them to appear. They might even think that one was insulting the other party. Hence, Su Yi had been having a headache over this. She could only think of ways to nurture them herself. The clash of swords and sabers was the finishing touch. In order to improve the song, one needed to display the highest saber Dao and sword Dao. The other problems were easy to solve. It was just a matter of time. However, this final problem had always been a sore point for Su Yi. I'm very sure. However, Pavilion Master Su, you have to agree to a request of mine. Xiaochen showed a serious expression as he looked at Su Yi. Please speak. Xiaochen stepped forward and whispered a few words into Su Yi's ear. Then he looked at her quietly. However, Su Yi did not hesitate. She nodded and said, "Don't worry. This is not a problem. Even if you do not help me, you just need to say the word, and the 100 fairies of the pear garden will listen to you at any time." Alright, it's a deal then. Now that the agreement was made, Xiaochen would help Su Yi complete the laughing saber and sword, and she would help Xiaochen with something else. Take a look first. This time, with the Sworna, symbols and Eru, it is closer to the laughing saber and sword that I have in mind. Su Yi smiled mysteriously. Then, she returned to the 100 fairies of the pear garden, and sat down with her zither. Just as Xiaochen felt puzzled, the row of women standing behind him started to play their Sworna. A majestic tone that Xiaochen had never experienced before appeared suddenly. There was no prelude. That intoxicating rhythm that filled one with anticipation arrived, catching them off guard. Dang, dang, dang. When the Sworna reached a low and deep tone, the sound of cymbals rang out. Lofty aspirations and hot-bloodedness instantly ignited. Soon after, pipa music rang out. The fingers of the 8 beautiful women moved rapidly. The pipa music surged endlessly like a surging river, one wave louder than the one before, faster than the one before. The lofty aspirations and hot-bloodedness ignited by the Sworna and cymbals were pushed to a new peak. The tempo of the entire piece reached its peak at the very beginning. Mountains howled and seas roared. Huge waves surged, soaring to the clouds, and hot-bloodedness blazed endlessly. The sound of the Eru rang out at an appropriate time, turning this hot-bloodedness solemn and stirring. However, it did not appear desolate. This was because the zither music, the flute, and the jade flute followed closely behind. As an outsider, Xiaochen was pressured by this majestic music until he could not catch his breath. He felt his blood vessels swell, and his heart pounded endlessly like it would leap out of his chest at any moment. At the very last moment, when the hot-bloodedness was completely ignited and the flames burned his entire body, a saber light appeared. A flash of saber light appeared, followed by a flash of sword light. Saber and sword clashing. The 2 women each held their sabers and swords. Everyone's anticipation lingered in the majestic and surging music as they presented the final theme. When the piece ended, the many beauties of the 100 fairies of the pear garden were already somewhat fatigued. Clearly, the performance of such a great piece drained not only their minds but also their energy and veritable essence energy. Xiaochen clapped his hands in praise. The laughing saber and sword, with the addition of the Sworna and symbols, was completely different from when he first saw it. Although it still had flaws, it had already improved significantly. Over the next few days, Xiaochen worked with Su Yi to complete the laughing saber and sword. At the same time, Su Yi sent 3 letters. One to the Heavenly Fragrance's Holy Daughter, one to the Universe Origin Sect's Chu Chaoyan, and the last to the Golden Crow Empire's Ao Jiao. At this moment, news of a major matter spread throughout the imperial capital Yen City, inciting heated discussions. Everyone, from the royal family to the ordinary martial artists, were discussing it. What was it? Naturally, it was the wedding between the first Prince Wang Fei and the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's headliner Ling Long. Since ancient times, there had never been a prince marrying a brothel headliner. Who was the first prince? He was a prince with overwhelming authority and power in the Yanwu dynasty. In the end, he might become one of the princes participating in the wedding ceremony. The headliner Ling Long's skills with the pipa were unparalleled in the world. She ranked first among the 10 headliners, and was famous in the imperial capital. Countless people loved her. No matter who she was, everyone in this imperial capital Yen City knew about her. However, no one had expected such 2 people to become husband and wife one day. It would be hard for such a wedding not to attract attention. The mini-princes were definitely thinking about how to deal with the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's alliance with the first prince and how it would affect them. As for the ordinary cultivators, most of them were just here to watch the excitement. They were happy to see it happen, treating it as a story that would spread far and wide. Everyone was looking forward to the day of the wedding. Xiaochen did not know about all this. He only focused on working with the 100 fairies of the pear garden to complete the laughing saber and sword. This was how Xiaochen was. No matter what it was, as long as he promised it, he would do his best to do it. 7 days later, Xiaochen finally reached a tacit understanding with the 100 fairies of the pear garden. He only lacked one person to exchange swords with the 100 fairies of the pear garden. Then he would be close to completing the laughing saber and sword. Xiaochen took his leave for now. Then he prepared to head to the Blue Dragon's old lands to search for his trump card. The 100 fairies of the pear garden could not gain a firm foothold in the imperial capital Yan City. He truly had to rely on himself. Chapter 2247. The blood moon hung high in the Blue Dragon's old land. The scattered moonlight illuminated this desolate world. It felt like even the air felt somewhat sorrowful. A figure suddenly appeared in the moon. It was Xiaochen, who had passed through the divine universe steel. Xiaochen arrived at this land of the blood moon. However, this was a coincidence. Not long after he appeared, a strong pressure came from behind him. A huge pressure came from behind him, and when he turned around, he saw a wall as tall as a small mountain. When he looked up again, he discovered that this was the desolate slave Soul Reaper. Soul Reaper held chains in its hands, and several corpses hung from its metal hooks. Without exception, they were all sovereign emperors. This was not Xiaochen's first time seeing this scene. However, he still felt somewhat startled and curious. Where did Soul Reaper kill these sovereign emperors? There seemed to be many dragon race ancient tombs in the desolate sea. Aside from staying in the Blue Dragon's ancient city, Soul Reaper probably guarded the ancient tombs as well. However, Xiaochen did not know where this dragon race ancient tomb was. Xiaochen recalled that the first time he saw Soul Reaper was when he met the Geomaster Qin Zhuolin. Qin Zhuolin had just come out of a dragon race ancient tomb. Qin Zhuolin had obtained the dragon race's excellent brew, Heartburn, from the dragon race, which ended up in Xiaochen's hands. As Xiaochen's thoughts wandered, the desolate slave Soul Reaper left Xiaochen's body. It landed on the ancient city's wall before Xiaochen. Then, it turned its head back and stared at Xiaochen. Xiaochen could not understand what it meant. Just as Xiaochen felt bewildered, the desolate slave Soul Reaper suddenly extended its hand. Soul Reaper held up the sky with one hand and caught Xiaochen. Then it turned around and gently landed Xiaochen on the Blue Dragon's Dao platform. Thank you. Regardless of whether this Soul Reaper could understand him or not, Xiaochen still thanked it. Rumble. A loud sound rang out from the spirit mountain in front of the Dao platform. The Blue Dragon statue appeared before Xiaochen like a huge snake coiling around the mountain. The statue opened its huge mouth and pushed open the door. Xiaochen entered. After making many turns inside the statue, Xiaochen saw the mysterious dragon spirit guarding the inheritance. It has only been 3 months, yet you've returned. Could it be that you intend to challenge the Great Inheritance Hall? The dragon spirit looked at Xiaochen and said slowly, with your current strength, you will not be able to clear the 2nd floor. You need to be at least a 3-vein sovereign emperor. Xiaochen smiled faintly and did not say anything. Although Xiaochen was still a 1-vein sovereign emperor, he had already completely refined the faux god flame that he inherited from an ancient demonic sovereign. The soul energy of a 3-vein sovereign emperor now belonged to Xiaochen. At the same time, it contained the power of a true god. In terms of true combat prowess, Xiaochen was only stronger than a 3-vein sovereign emperor. Cultivation is just a facade. Senior Dragon Spirit, don't be deceived by it. The dragon spirit smiled and said, Is that so? You seem to be very confident. The stronger you are, the happier I am. Looks like you have a trump card that I don't know about. Go, I'll wait and see. Xiaochen waved his hand and said, There's no rush. I would like to ask if the Blue Dragon's inheritance has a secret technique that can allow me to severely injure a small perfection sovereign emperor to a peak sovereign emperor. When the dragon spirit heard that, it revealed a cautious expression. After some thought, it said, "Your way of thinking is not good. In the end, cultivating the martial Tao requires gradual progress. You are very talented and have excellent comprehension ability. You should understand this principle, right? A peak sovereign emperor is 2 major grades away from a small perfection sovereign emperor. Having a goal is a good thing. However, if you bite off more than you can chew, you will easily end up going to the extremes." Naturally, Xiaochen understood what the dragon spirit said. Sovereign emperor, 1 heaven per vein. Xiaochen could reach his current strength because he could fight across realms. He had many trump cards, including the Supreme Dragon Fist, Firmament's Rage, the Royal True Dragon Blood, the Mahamaya Abstinence Violation Saber Technique, Heavenly Slayer, and the Blood-Soaked Dragon Emperor's Blue Dragon Body Tempering Art. With so many trump cards, Xiaochen had the capital to fight a great perfection sovereign emperor. A 1-vein sovereign emperor fighting a great perfection sovereign emperor was already sufficiently exaggerated and shocking. Furthermore, Xiaochen wanted to fight a peak sovereign emperor. A man who was never content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. If he was not careful, he would suffer a backlash. I understand. However, my enemy already has a peak sovereign emperor. Before that peak sovereign emperor, even my soul feels heavy pressure. I can't even breathe properly. This feeling of helplessness is very despairing, Xiaochen said seriously as he looked at the dragon spirit. The dragon spirit entered deep thought. Then it sighed softly. I'm just thinking about what you are thinking. Forbidden arts. Forbidden arts? It is impossible for you to severely injure a peak sovereign emperor with a secret technique or martial technique, no matter how strong the martial technique is. Due to the limitations of your cultivation, you cannot injure a peak sovereign emperor. In reality, the Firmament's Rage and the Supreme Dragon Fist that you cultivate can severely injure a peak sovereign emperor. It is just that your cultivation is too low. The dragon spirit paused for a moment before continuing. Aside from forbidden arts, there is no other way to severely injure a peak sovereign emperor with your current cultivation. Any forbidden art would definitely be extremely horrifying. However, its side effects and consequences would be very scary as well. Indeed, Xiaochen had taken it for granted earlier. This made sense. How could there be any shortcuts to severely injuring a peak sovereign emperor as a small perfection sovereign emperor? Aside from forbidden arts, there was no other way. You understand the price of forbidden arts without me saying it. Injuring the enemy 1,000 times, but also oneself 800 times. A forbidden art that can severely injure a peak sovereign emperor might injure the enemy 1,000 times, but oneself 2,000 times. The dragon spirit said seriously with a grave expression. Xiaochen remained silent. He had already experienced the pain of forbidden arts in the Kunlun realm. Forbidden arts could not be used carelessly. There had to be a price. Sometimes, one could not even bear the price. Don't think about this for now. I think that you have already reached the peak of the 10,000 Dragons Arts first layer. Go and clear the trials first. Obtaining the second layer is the most important thing. The dragon spirit turned around and led Xiaochen to the inheritance hall. Not long after, the 5-floored inheritance hall appeared before him. Xiaochen did not hesitate to enter the first floor with large strides. It was empty. There was nothing there at all. Then, Xiaochen glanced at the entrance to the second floor. He did not know what the so-called test would be. Feeling some anticipation, Xiaochen moved quickly and entered the door of light. As the light flickered, space and time changed. The scene turned blurry and overlapping images appeared. When the overlapping images merged, Xiaochen found himself in a winding corridor. Drip, drip. The ceiling above Xiaochen's head was injured, and blood dripped down. He smelled horror. Qi. This was the essence blood of the dragon race's natural enemy, the Ho. Xiaochen could not help showing a grave expression. The blood stopped dripping and wriggled on the ground. After a while, it gathered into a row of armored 3-vein sovereign emperors. These 3-vein sovereign emperors looked exactly like Xiaochen. It looked like they were 10 of Xiaochen's clones charging at him. Candle dragon eyes. 2 strands of candle flames appeared in Xiaochen's eyes, flickering. A candle dragon image appeared behind Xiao Chun, opening its eyes at the same time. Immediately, Xiao Chun focused his Ice Dao's Great Dao energy on the candle dragon. In the next moment, the 10 Ho blood clones burned with a cold flame. Their movements stiffened. To think that they did not freeze. Xiao Chun muttered to himself. He rarely saw ferocious beasts that did not freeze under the candle dragon eyes. However, this was fine. Xiao Chun summoned out the alloy dragon armor, and left behind a purple electric mark as he instantly charged over. Then he circulated the 10,000 dragons art in his divine energy sea. A dragon image immediately leaped out. Following that, thousands of dragon images gathered at the blue dragon image. In the next moment, a 10,000 dragons picture with the blue dragon in the center appeared behind Xiao Chun. Bang! 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 Xiao Chun instantly executed the Supreme Dragon Fist. Fighting 1 against 10, he easily dealt with the 10 stiff Ho-blood clones. Although these Ho-blood clones gave off the aura of a 3-veined sovereign emperor, Xiao Chun dealt with them rather easily. He did not need to draw the tyrant saber on his back. Xiao Chun could handle the situation with ease with just the Supreme Dragon Fist, suppressing the 10 Ho-blood clones by himself. Bang! Xiao Chun punched again. However, he was shocked to discover that he did not manage to knock this Ho-blood clone away. Just as Xiao Chun felt confused, the other 9 Ho-blood clones attacked at the same time. Leaderless dragons. In a rush, Xiao Chun used leaderless dragons to face the enemies. Fist lights flickered in the heaven dragon image. Xiao Chun had already moved fast enough, but he still got struck several times. Fortunately, the alloy dragon armor protected him. Xiao Chun only got knocked back and did not suffer any severe injuries. Xiao Chun wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. A bright light flickered in his eyes. Has the candle dragon eyes effect weakened? That's not right, the effect is still there. Otherwise, it would not have been as simple as getting struck 4 times. What was that? Xiao Chun squinted and looked carefully. Then he discovered that the 10 Ho-blood clones were actually peak 3-veined sovereign emperors. Blood-colored light radiated from his body and connected together, actually suppressing his dragon might. When did he become so strong? I didn't even realize it. Images flashed through Xiao Chun's mind as he tried to recall the details of his fight with the hateful blood clones. So that was how it was. Xiao Chun's eyes lit up. These sacrificial blood clones could absorb his soul power and divine essence. The longer the battle dragged on, the more terrifying the opponent's strength would be. A never-ending increase. For a moment, the sacrificial blood clone, which he thought he could deal with easily, became somewhat terrifying in Xiao Chun's eyes. I didn't have a chance to test whether my idea was correct. Xiao Chun could only take advantage of this moment to kill the other party in one move. Otherwise, when the 10 Ho-blood clones reached the level of a 4-veined sovereign emperor, they would not be able to survive. Their chances of winning were a little bleak. Chapter 2248. Killing 10 enemies in one move. Thousands of thoughts flashed in Xiao Chun's mind. Countless thoughts flashed in his mind in the time it took for a spark to fly. The candle dragon flames on the 10 Ho-blood clones slowly extinguished. Once the flames extinguished and the 10 Ho-blood clones regained their freedom, they would grow even stronger. This was just the beginning, and the test was already so difficult. No wonder the dragon spirit said that only 3-veined sovereign emperors could pass. The inheritance hall's test was truly not to be underestimated. Fortunately, Xiao Chun came to his senses in time, and did not cause a huge disaster. One move then. Xiao Chun stretched his right hand above his shoulder, and tightly grasped the tyrant saber's hilt. Then he closed his eyes. Xiao Chun's heart became as still as water, entering a state of martial and soul as one. His entire being became ethereal. Martial and soul as one perfectly merged soul energy and divine energy, bringing out 100%, even 150%, of one's combat prowess, exceeding one's limits. Xiao Chun suddenly opened his eyes, and the 10 Ho-blood clones entered his vision. The berserk auras pressed down from such close proximity, making Xiao Chun somewhat unsteady. Xiao Chun wondered what this corridor was made of. Despite the pressure of 10 3-veined sovereign emperors, it did not even crack. It was completely intact, looking ancient. Draw the saber. When the tyrant saber was drawn, the world immediately plunged into darkness. Only the resplendent saber light remained eternal. Mahamaya abstinence violation saber, in the mortal realm. In that instant, a supreme killing Buddha transcended the limits of time, arriving from ancient times, and descended on this ancient corridor. As the resplendent saber light descended, the entire corridor trembled. When the ancient Buddha attacked, the 10 Whole-blood clones all got knocked back at the same time. However, as these Whole-blood clones retreated, their strength soared despite being severely injured. The strength of these Whole-blood clones soared, looking like they would break through 3-vein Sovereign Emperor, and advance to 4-vein Sovereign Emperor. At that time, their injuries would recover in an instant. Now, it was like a lotus flower that could not melt, like the sun and moon that could not be in the sky. The Buddhist sect's 7-kill seal. Illuminate my immortal heart, dazzling 3 lives. Kill. Xiaoqun used the 7-kill seal to condense a 7-fold killing intent to execute the 3-life flower. When Xiaoqun swung his saber, a lotus flower bloomed. Light and shadow twisted, turning the scenery blurry. Xiaoqun's figure flickered in the blue lotus as if he was teleporting, and he slashed out 10 times in a row. Clang. The moment Xiaoqun landed, he casually sheathed his tyrant saber. A drop of blood splattered on the ground. The 10 Whole-blood clones had all dissipated. Xiaoqun closed his eyes once more. When he opened them again, Xiaoqun exited the state of martial and spirit as one. He did not turn his head back to look. Without saying a word, he continued walking forward. Along the corridor, Xiaoqun, who had experienced it before, encountered many Houseblood clones. He did not panic and continued to deal with the other party. He did not attack, but when he attacked he would definitely kill. He didn't want to give the other party a chance to endure his strength and soar. Xiaoqun was unimpeded by this somewhat dull slaughter. His face was expressionless as he arrived at an empty hall. It should be a small world. Xiaoqun muttered to himself as he sensed the fluctuations of an array formation around the hall. When Xiaoqun stepped into the hall, he found himself in a vast and boundless sea of sand as expected. The bright sun hung high in the azure sky, making it look like a play. Xiaoqun looked around. Aside from the yellow sand, there was no one else. Come through my stage and you can enter the second floor. 5,000 kilometers away, the yellow sand shattered, and a person emerged from the ground as dust flew about like snow. Xiaoqun looked into the distance and saw a black-clad person with a saber on his back, facing him across the sea of sand. This person is a peak 3-vein Sovereign Emperor, the same as me, a peak 4th-layer Saber Dao domain. If that were all, it would not be difficult to deal with him. Only 1 vein separated a 3-vein Sovereign Emperor and a 4-vein Sovereign Emperor. However, that was the difference between small perfection and great perfection. The difference in strength between the two was like heaven and earth. Xiaoqun entered deep thought. However, he could not make out the other party's strength for now. Whoosh! The black-clad bladesman crossed the distance of 5,000 kilometers in an instant. Then he appeared before Xiaoqun and threw a punch at Xiaoqun's face. A 10,000 dragons picture coalesced behind the black-clad bladesman. A brown dragon image appeared particularly eye-catching. Xiaoqun did not dare to be careless. He materialized the 10,000 dragons picture and executed the Supreme Dragon Fist. Bang! The fist lights clashed. It was like 2 worlds colliding. Xiaoqun grunted. Blood leaked out of Xiaoqun's lips as he got knocked back. His eyes revealed heavy doubt. What's going on? His cultivation is clearly not much higher than mine. I have the Supreme Dragon Fist to support me. How did I lose in 1 strike? Whoosh! 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 However, the black-clad bladesman did not give Xiaoqun a chance to think. He pressed forward and punched repeatedly. Whoosh! Whoosh! Xiaoqun executed the Divine Firmament 9 transformation technique to its limits. His figure flickered, instantly creating thousands of afterimages. However, that black-clad bladesman's fist lights were relentless. The afterimages shattered like glass. This forced Xiaoqun to the point of breathlessness. In the end, he could not dodge in time and got punched in the alloy dragon armor. Roar! Electric light flickered. At the critical moment, Two electric images in the alloy dragon armor formed a lightning shield. Although Xiao Chen managed to block most of the force, he still found it extremely unbearable as he went flying back. When Xiao Chen landed on the ground, boundless yellow sand kicked up, forming a terrifying sandstorm. Whoosh! That black-clad bladesman spread his arms and fell like a meteor. He stored up power on his right fist, releasing a resplendent star-like light. His figure seemed to merge with the sun, looking incredibly dazzling. Divine Lightning Eye. As Xiao Chen lay on the ground, he ignored the blood on his lips. Dozens of purple flower petals spun in his right eye and overlapped. Dozens of tribulation clouds appeared in the sky. However, just as the thunder clouds were about to gather, they met with resistance and could not merge. Bang! The resplendent fist light landed. Xiao Chen did his best to dodge, but the shock wave still struck him. Xiao Chen vomited a mouthful of blood and tumbled in the air. When he landed, he bounced up and down a few times before falling far away. How can it be like this? To think that the tribulation lightning could not gather, Xiao Chen felt shocked and confused. It looks like you are not prepared yet. Did Lord Dragon Spirit not explain clearly to you? The black-clad bladesman asked as he hovered in the air and looked at Xiao Chen. I'd like to hear the details. Xiao Chen said after some thought as he struggled to his feet. Earth Dao Domain Peak 10th Layer. The black-clad bladesman said calmly. When Xiao Chen heard that, he was stunned for a while. Then he smiled bitterly. So that is the case. When one's Dao domain reached peak 10th layer, it could advance to a small world. This was the other party's small world. Unless one's cultivation suppressed the other parties or had a peak 10th layer Dao domain, one would not stand a chance of victory in this small world. Initially, Xiao Chen thought that this was a small world formed by a formation. Now it looked like this small world was materialized by the other party's peak Dao domain. That explained why the tribulation clouds could not gather. Naturally, one would face resistance when one attracted the tribulation lightning outside in the other party's small world. I've learned something. I lost. Xiao Chen sighed. Even though he still had Heavenly Slayer, he had no choice but to admit defeat. Such a suppressive advantage could not be made up for with a soul tool. Haha. Don't tell me that you think that you have to kill me to pass. When the black-clad bladesman saw the situation, he laughed hoarsely. Then he said softly, You already passed. As long as you can last 10 moves against me, you will pass. This stunned Xiao Chen. Happiness came too suddenly. Wasn't it too easy? The black-clad bladesman replied calmly, That's not it. Along the way, I spent most of my energy dealing with the whole-blood clone. It would already be pretty good if you could last 3 moves from me. It is not too easy. Rather, you are too strong. The whole-blood beast does not seem to pose much of a threat to you. Xiao Chen nodded and said, I'm already used to it. Now that I have activated my royal true dragon bloodline, and our cultivation is not that far apart, I no longer feel much fear. No wonder. I'll send you to the 2nd floor then. The black-clad bladesman stretched out his hand, and a door of light appeared in the yellow sand, leading to the inheritance hall's 2nd floor. After performing a cupped fist salute, Xiao Chen walked over with large strides. Xiao Chen had cleared this stage somewhat bafflingly. However, no matter what, he had finally passed the test. The instant Xiao Chen entered the inheritance hall's 2nd floor, beams of light directly encased him. Congratulations, Blue Dragon Disciple. The inheritance you obtained on this floor is Divine Energy Infusion. Feeling somewhat confused, Xiao Chen saw many dragon race powerhouses walking out from the ancient era. His divine essence cultivation rose rapidly, but he had yet to react. Before he could react, he revealed a helpless smile. Kasi. Xiao Chen successfully broke through to 2-vein Sovereign Emperor. After a while, Xiao Chen startled awake, revealing a helpless smile. The inheritances in the inheritance hall appeared randomly. If he could choose, he would not have chosen the divine energy infusion. Secret techniques, cultivation techniques, or natural treasures that could raise his Dao domain were what he urgently needed. After exchanging moves with the black-clad bladesman, Xiao Chen already understood that the so-called cultivation realm was just a reference. The divine energy infusion that others sought was not suitable for cultivating in the Sovereign Emperor realm. However, Xiao Chen viewed it as useless. He had to admit that he had been somewhat greedy. Aside from the deep abyss infusion, the second floor was empty. There were no other treasures left. Xiaochen could not hide his disappointment. After Xiaochen took the 10,000 Dragons Art's second layer, he left in a hurry to meet the dragon spirit again. I've already considered it. I need the forbidden art that Senior mentioned. Xiaochen revealed a serious expression as he spoke calmly without hesitation. The dragon spirit remained silent, not in a rush to answer. Chapter 2249. You need a forbidden technique that can severely injure peak sovereign emperors. Naturally, the inheritance hall has it. However, have you really thought it through? The senior dragon spirit asked as it looked at Xiaochen. I already thought about it before coming. Senior dragon spirit, please grant me my wish. All right. The dragon spirit handed a jade strip to Xiaochen. After some thought it said, the situation is special, so I'll make an exception this time. Take this jade strip properly. Xiaochen received the jade strip and placed it on his forehead. Ancient divine characters immediately appeared in his mind. Xiaochen did not recognize the divine characters. However, when they appeared in his mind, he naturally understood their meaning. 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing Technique. Xiaochen looked at the senior dragon spirit in confusion. Then he said, this does not seem to be a forbidden technique unique to the dragon race. This is a forbidden technique that has existed since the Great Desolate Aeon. Now in the martial epoch, only the dragon race grasps it, probably the only one. The stronger the bloodline, the stronger the might of this forbidden technique. If you execute it with your blue dragon bloodline, you can trace it back to its origin, allowing an ancient blue dragon to undergo a blood rebirth. If you are strong enough, it might even be possible to transform into a Great Desolate Aeon ancestor dragon. This revelation startled Xiaochen. He asked, what's the price? Once executed, one's divine energy and soul energy will burn, unstoppable until they burn out. If one is not careful, one will exhaust their chi and blood and die. One needs extremely strong willpower to control it. The dragon spirit sighed softly. Hence, I hesitated for a long time before giving it to you. No one has cultivated this forbidden technique for many years already. The price to pay is a small matter. However, many people do not have strong willpower and cannot endure it. After returning to their ancestral roots, they are unable to reverse it and tire themselves to death. Many of the seniors who executed this 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing technique were prepared to perish together. I'll take note. Xiaochen showed a grave expression as he realized how terrifying this 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing technique was. This is for you. A Primal Essence Heavenly Replenishing Pill. A Rank 8 Heavenly Pill. After using a forbidden technique, if one didn't have a good supplement, it would leave behind a hidden injury, and one would regret it for the rest of their life. You must remember, if you do not have a Tier 8 Heavenly Pill or above, you must not use this forbidden technique. Otherwise, even if you injure your opponent, you'll still be crippled. The dragon spirit said to Xiaochen with a grave expression. Now, not counting the juniors of the Kunlun Realm's Dragon's Gate, you are the only one left of the blue dragon bloodline. I do not wish for you to die like this. Xiaochen smiled and said, don't worry, I won't die. After leaving the land of the Blood Moon, Xiaochen returned to the Misty Rain Pavilion and continued his seclusion. The 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing technique was much more profound than he had imagined. When he studied it carefully, he found it to be boundlessly profound. It wasn't just a forbidden art. It was that simple. According to the records, this martial skill wasn't a forbidden technique during the primordial era. As long as he could find the complete remains of a divine dragon or an ancestral dragon, he would be able to execute this technique without any damage. He could even refine the ancestral dragon true body or the inferior divine dragon true body into his avatar. He could freely switch between his true body and an ancestral dragon clone. However, the remains of ancestral dragons and divine dragons were everywhere during the Great Desolate Aeon, so they were easy to find. Now many epochs had passed. However, ancestral dragon remains, divine dragon remains, and even true dragon remains were hard to find. At best, one could find some broken limbs. If one wanted to find complete remains, one would have to target mixed blood dragons. Let's not care about this for now. I'll study it thoroughly first. When necessary, I can protect myself and the people around me. After making a trip to the Blue Dragon's ancient land, Xiaochen received a divine source infusion and advanced to Two-Veined Sovereign Emperor. Obtaining the second layer of the 10,000 Dragons art was a significant harvest. After thinking about it carefully, Xiaochen was somewhat surprised to discover that the 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing technique and the 10,000 Dragons art seemed to achieve the same result through different means. The 10,000 Dragons art had 5 layers. After advancing each layer, it would eventually evolve into the Ancestor Dragon art. The 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing technique used blood to revert to ancestry. In the end, it also sought to become a great desolate Aeon Ancestor Dragon. However, the two were very different. One was a cultivation technique, and the other was a martial technique. One focused on gradual progress, while the other focused on rapid progress. The two also had different directions. The 10,000 Dragons art was mainly used to cultivate and temper the body. However, the 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing technique was mainly used to injure the enemy. More importantly, the 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing technique was not created by the dragon race. Anyone with a great desolate Aeon bloodline could also cultivate it. Perhaps there was some connection between the two. However, this was not the time for Xiaochen to consider. Right now, he only wanted to focus on studying this forbidden art in case he needed it. The most important thing now was to cultivate the 10,000 Dragons art's second layer. He had already delayed the first layer for a long time. Now that he obtained the cultivation technique, he naturally had to do his best to make up for it. Time passed. The outside world was in chaos. The imperial capital Yen City continued its glory and prosperity day and night. However, time seemed to stop in the courtyard behind the Misty Rain Pavilion. Xiaochen practiced his saber during the day, trying to master the final move, merciless killing. At night, he worked on the 10,000 Dragons art's second layer. With the aid of the 2 divine veins, his 10,000 Dragons art improved rapidly. The 10,000 Dragons picture with the blue dragon in the center of Xiaochen's divine energy, see already completely materialized. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 days passed. There were less than 10 days left to the first Prince Wang Fei's wedding. The entire imperial capital Yen City started to brim with a festive atmosphere. The first Prince Wang Fei used all his strength to maximize the influence of this wedding. In the past few days, feudal lords from various places headed to the imperial capital Yen City. Naturally, the feudal lords belonging to the first prince's camp arrived early. Some of the neutral feudal lords and noble clans saw that the first prince and the Smiling Daughter Pavilion formed an alliance behind this wedding. These feudal lords started to waver in their stance, wondering if they should stand on the first prince's side. Soon after, they rushed to the imperial capital Yen City to congratulate the first prince. Wang Fei was the eldest son in the first place. Furthermore, he had the support of the imperial ancestral temple's patriarchs. Now he also had the support of the Pleasure Quarter Alliance. Now he had another trump card in the succession race. This wedding caused Wang Fei's influence to soar, surpassing that of the 8th prince, who had the support of a sect, and the Yen Emperor's favorite 13th prince. This did not seem to have any tangible effect. However, luck was something that was hard to predict. When one side's luck increased, the other side's would definitely decrease. Before the wedding took place, the first prince already gained the initiative in the succession race. Xiaochen did not overthink. He remained in closed-door cultivation by the Mirror Lake, not bothering about right or wrong. He left everything to Su Yi and Emochen. However, today the peaceful days were broken by the arrival of one person. The Heavenly Book Scholar came to seek an audience. Right now, the imperial capital Yen City is extraordinarily bustling. Various factions gather here. Feudal lords come every day. It is not peaceful for even a moment. This place of yours is unexpectedly quiet. It really surprises me. This is truly surprising, the Heavenly Book Scholar said with a soft smile as he fanned himself with his folding fan when he saw Xiaochen. The Heavenly Book Scholar's expression remained the same, his bones delicate, and his spirit carefree. Xiao Chen retorted indifferently. What else? What did you think I would be like? A brilliant light flashed in the heavenly book scholar's eyes. He smiled and said, I thought that you would at least join in the excitement. On the surface, it looks like a wedding. However, behind it is the succession race. As long as one is ambitious, they will be recruiting soldiers and buying horses, making their final preparations. This is because everyone knows that this wedding has already changed the situation of the succession race. After the wedding, the succession race will start immediately. Xiao Chen smiled and said, I've disappointed you. Let's not talk about this for now. One does not come to the temple for no reason. Why are you looking for me? Just tell me directly. The heavenly book scholar smiled and said, I am not the one looking for you. The one who wants to meet you this time is someone else. Ooh. He has been waiting for a long time in the Mirror Lake. If you are willing, you can come with me. Xiao Chen knew who was waiting for him. He said softly, lead the way. Chapter 2250. Behind the misty rain pavilion, on the surface of the vast Mirror Lake, two figures, one in front and one behind, walked on the surface of the water as if they were walking on flat ground. One of them held a white paper fan in his hand. His demeanor was elegant and dignified, as if he was alive. He appeared somewhat weak, like a pale-faced scholar. The other person was dressed in white. His expression was calm as he strolled leisurely in the water. Needless to say, the leader was the heavenly book scholar. Naturally, the other person was Xiao Chen. After passing through a group of blooming water lilies, and a few more ups and downs in the misty water, the heavenly book scholar fell like a meteor, landing firmly on a lone boat. Then he turned his head to look at Xiao Chen, and made an inviting gesture. The sky was clear and blue, the clouds were light and the wind was gentle. It was almost noon. The mist was hazy, and a lone boat was in the middle of the river. Xiao Chen glanced at it and didn't suspect anything else. Like a leaf falling from a pine tree, he landed steadily on the bow of the ship. Looking forward, there was already a table of simple dishes and wine in the cabin. The small space could only accommodate 2 or 3 people. The person on the other side was dressed in embroidered clothes. He had a handsome and masculine appearance, and there was a faint murderous aura between his brows. No matter how hard he tried to hide it, he could not hide the murderous aura that made people's hearts palpitate. This was a prince who had killed many people. I have long heard of Lord Zhao's name. I finally get to meet you today. Please take a seat. The 9th prince smiled faintly, and invited Xiao Chen to sit down. Greetings, 9th prince. After cupping his hands in greeting, Xiao Chen lifted the hem of his robes and slowly sat down. The 9th prince Wang Yan frequently guarded the borders, resisting the abyssal underworld's demons and the Blood Moon dynasty, a great threat. Xiao Chen didn't know much about him. He only had some understanding of him. He didn't know anything about his background or personality. Wang Yan was not surprised that Xiao Chen recognized him. After a simple understanding and 3 cups of wine, Wang Yan said, Lord Xiao has the strongest spirit in the world, heartburn. I wonder if the simple wine here is to your liking? Xiao Chen put down his cup and said, Drinking also depends on one's state of mind. No matter how good the wine was, it was impossible to taste it. For example, right now, the small boat in the middle of the lake and the boundless mist. Although there is an artistic conception, it is not the time to drink. Wang Yan exchanged looks with the heavenly book scholar. Then he smiled and said, Lord Xiao is a straightforward person. I will not waste any more words. It was my idea that Changji asked you to buy the key to the Immortal Palace last time. This time, I personally came to ask if Lord Xiao has the intention to make a move. So the heavenly book scholar's name is Changji, Xiao Chen thought to himself. Then he put down his wine cup and smiled. Not selling. As expected. Since you are not selling the ethereal palace key, I wonder if Lord Xiao is willing to sell it? Wang Yan's expression did not change as he looked at Xiao Chen. The lake rippled and the boat swayed. Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as still water. He did not move at all. He said calmly, What do you mean? The 9th prince wants you to help him fight for the throne. Haven't you always wanted to know where the immortal palace will appear in the prophecy? I can tell you. Only those who help a prince fight for the throne are qualified to know. Aside from that, there is no other way, the heavenly book scholar said from the side. Then he looked at Xiaoqun, observing his expression. However, the heavenly book scholar appeared somewhat disappointed. He could not make out anything from Xiaoqun's expression. It seemed like Xiaoqun had guessed it long ago. I know all this. Tell me something I don't know. The heavenly book scholar frowned slightly when he heard that. Then he looked at the ninth prince. After the ninth prince nodded, the heavenly book scholar said, "All right. During the succession race, all the princes will enter the ancient Yin Emperor tomb. This is a secret realm of the royal clan. It is also the place where the Yin dynasty's luck and dragon veins are stored. Aside from the tombs of the past Yin emperors, there are also all sorts of fortuitous encounters and inheritances. However, many of the places in this secret realm are forbidden lands. Even the royal clan has not explored all of them. This time, the various diviners who read fate and calculate luck all agree that the immortal palace might appear in the ancient Yin Emperor tomb. However, as you know, this prophecy has spread thousands of times in the past 100,000 years. You can determine its truth by yourself." Xiaoqun thought to himself. After a while he asked, "Only the royal clan controls the entrance to the ancient Yin Emperor tomb, and the tomb opens only during the succession race?" The heavenly book scholar said, "That's right. Even the imperial ancestral temple's patriarchs are qualified to enter only after the late emperor passes away. You need to work with a prince to be qualified to enter. Otherwise, the immortal palace key would be wasted in your hands." The ninth prince continued, "The succession race is a test for all the princes to enter the ancient Yin Emperor tomb. The final victor will be the crown prince. Honestly speaking, I do not care about the crown prince position. I am just worried. If the immortal palace really appears, the wings of time will fall into the hands of the Xiuwu dynasty." Finding this strange, Xiaoqun asked, "The Xiuwu dynasty's people can enter the ancient Yin Emperor tomb?" Previously not. However, it is hard to say after the wedding in the imperial capital. The ninth prince said indifferently. This wedding was clearly referring to the wedding of the first prince that had spread across the world. Speaking of which, Xiaoqun, what do you think of this wedding? The heavenly book scholar asked as he looked at Xiaoqun. There seemed to be a deeper meaning to his question. Xiaoqun's expression did not change as he replied, "What opinion can I have?" "Is that so? In that case, it looks like you still do not know about the recent events. Aside from the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarch, there is another person presiding over this wedding. The current clan head of the Sword God's noble clan, Su Qiming, is also the father of the Misty Rain Pavilion's pavilion master." The heavenly book scholar explained calmly and unhurriedly. This stunned Xiaoqun. This meant that the first prince had gained another great helper. Is the transcendent strongest noble clan of the dynasty finally taking a side in this succession race? No wonder the heavenly book scholar asked for my opinion. I thought that the other party already knew some of my plans. The ninth prince showed a somewhat helpless expression as he said, "The noble clans, the sects, and the feudal lords are the three strongest factions in the dynasty. The Su family was the head of the world's aristocratic families. Regardless of his motives for choosing his eldest brother, it would definitely affect the choices of many aristocratic families. After this wedding, eldest brother has already taken the lead in the battle for the position of crown prince, breaking the original balance between the three." Xiaoqun's thoughts raced as he thought of something. He asked, "The ninth prince mentioned earlier that the Xiuwu dynasty's demons can enter the ancient Yin Emperor tomb after the wedding. Does that have anything to do with this?" The ninth prince laughed softly and said, "Big brother obtained such a strong support and seized the initiative, leaving 8th brother and 13th brother far behind. To obtain so many benefits, one naturally has to pay the price. It's just that the price paid is a little too great. If one is not careful, one will fall into their own trap." Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Xiaoqun pondered and pointed out the crux of the problem. "That's right. In reality, the Azure Lotus Church is behind the Pleasure Quarter Alliance. Right now the ancestral court is in the Xiuwu dynasty. Back then, the Azure Lotus Church fought with the Buddhist sect. After they lost, they were labeled an evil sect. They could only go far away to avoid trouble. Instead, they developed in the Shua Wu dynasty. However, the world does not know that the Azure Lotus Church's greatest business has always been in the Yan Wu dynasty. Such a secret shocked Xiaochen. To think that the Azure Lotus Church was behind the Pleasure Quarter Alliance. The Azure Lotus Church. This was not Xiaochen's first time hearing about this. Back in the fiendish demon battlefield in the Grave Sea Cluster, he had a karmic connection with the Azure Lotus Holy Daughters Nirmanakia. The Nirmanakia was different from the clone. The Nirmanakia had its own thoughts and character, able to think subjectively. No matter how strong the clone was or how intelligent it was, it could not think subjectively, much less give birth to a new personality. However, there were similarities between the two. Be it the Nirmanakia or the clone, they were both under the control of the main body. Everything that happened between Xiaochen and the Azure Lotus Holy Daughters Nirmanakia back then was under the observation of the main body. The other party knew everything. However, the main body was the main body, and the Nirmanakia was the Nirmanakia. The two were like two different people. Back then, after the Azure Lotus Holy Daughters Nirmanakia spoke, her physical body exploded, turning into a strand of 9-colored spirituality that vanished. Since the royal court knows that the Azure Lotus Church is behind the Pleasure Quarter Alliance, why did they not eradicate the Pleasure Quarter Alliance? Xiaochen asked out of curiosity, startling awake from his memories. The Heavenly Book Scholar smiled and said, Xiaochen, given your intelligence, you just need to think about it to figure out the reason. The Hidden Spirit Temple. Inspiration flashed in Xiaochen's mind as he said seriously. The Heavenly Book Scholar nodded and said, That's right. The royal court did indeed think of using the Pleasure Quarter Alliance to keep the Hidden Spirit Temple in check. However, whether it would be effective or not is another matter. Another reason is that the Pleasure Quarter Alliance possesses deep accumulations. It is practically impossible to eradicate it completely. Furthermore, it has never shown any enmity to the dynasty, so we just let it exist. The 9th prince said, This time is somewhat different. For the sake of the ethereal immortal palace, the Xiaowu dynasty will definitely use the Azure Lotus Church as a connection to enter the ancient Yin Emperor tomb. The first prince can't be that stupid, right? Wang Yan said coldly. He took benefits from others. Naturally, he has to pay the price. He is not stupid either. He just thinks himself clever and wants to take a gamble. The prophecies have been false thousands of times. As long as this time is also false, it does not matter to him. After saying so much, I have said everything I know. Lord Xiao, you can see my sincerity. What do you think? Are you willing to help me seize the throne and enter the ancient Yin Emperor tomb together? Xiaochen replied softly, I'll give you an answer 3 days later. Sure. This is such a major matter. If you agree to it now, I will feel suspicious. Wang Yan smiled faintly and stood up to send the three off. The three walked to the bow of the warship. Just as they were about to say their goodbyes, the lake's surface turned scarlet at some point in time, and many black corpses floated on the water. Wang Yan's expression immediately changed drastically. These are my secret guards. Chapter 2251. Blood flowed in the clear lake water. Clearly, these 9th prince's secret guards had died not long ago. The Heavenly Book Scholar and the 9th prince Wang Yan showed somewhat shocked expressions. Unexpectedly, someone in the imperial capital dared to attack a prince. The three stood at the bow, not daring to act rashly. The 9th prince had killed so many elite secret guards right under their noses. At the very least, he was a great perfection sovereign emperor. Furthermore, his water Dao domain was very strong. As Wang Yan looked at the corpses of the secret guards soaking in the water, his expression turned increasingly unsightly. Wang Yan could no longer suppress the killing qi on his face, spreading it out wildly. Boom! When the horrifying killing qi burst out, the entire lake became like the sea. Waves roared and surged endlessly. Xiaochen felt slightly startled. The 9th prince's strength somewhat surprised him. Just his killing qi was already so terrifying. This person must have taken the lead when killing enemies outside, leading the charge. Countless demonic Dao cultivators and abyssal underworld cultivators must have died at the ninth prince's hands. Otherwise, he would not have materialized such a vast killing chi. Xiaochen vaguely saw a shadow of himself from back then in the ninth prince. The ninth prince walked the massacre Dao. If one was not careful on this Dao, one would enter berserking chi deviation and fall into an abyss of eternal damnation. However, the ninth prince had the dynasty's luck, so he was in a much better state than Xiaochen back then. The dynasty's luck could suppress and refine this killing chi. However, the ninth prince's killing chi could also be used to refine the dynasty's luck. It all depended on the ninth prince's choice. I want to see who dares to kill my people in Yin City. The ninth prince raged. The lake water surged, looking like it would overturn the entire lake. Xiaochen felt slightly surprised. With such a large lineup, it should have startled the outside world long ago. The Misty Rain Pavilion was located in the bustling area of the imperial capital. Any disturbance would startle the entire imperial capital. The city guards would rush over in 10 breaths. However, there was no movement at all. It was like the three were isolated in another world. Something's wrong, Xiaochen said to the Heavenly Book Scholar. Then he activated the alloy dragon armor. Purple dragon motifs adorned the silver armor, and a thunder dragon reverse scale pendant hung on his forehead. His aura immediately changed drastically. The Heavenly Book Scholar looked at the sky and said, "Something is wrong. We are already in someone else's small world. Pocket world." One could materialize a small world only after reaching the 10th layer of the Dao domain. This was somewhat problematic. Puff. As soon as he finished speaking, a bloody mouth appeared in the water and swallowed the entire boat with a bang. So. The three of them moved as fast as lightning, dodging to the side and looking back. In the lake below, a snow-white snake with a single horn on its head appeared. Vaguely, there was a trace of divine might. This was a huge snake with the bloodline of the divine beast Bays. Snow python. This stunned the Heavenly Book Scholar. He recognized this snake. This was a ferocious beast that only the White Marsh Beast Empire's royal court possessed. A person stood on the snake's body. This person wore a straw raincoat and a conical bamboo hat. He held a fishing rod in his hand. This person exuded a mysterious and unfathomable aura, displaying the horrifying cultivation of a six-veined sovereign emperor. Doubt flashed in Xiaochen's eyes. However, before he could think, that person swung the fishing rod in his hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The fishing line seemed to have a life of its own, twisting in the air and drawing a curved path as it tried to entangle the three. Xiaochen and the other two did not dare to be careless. Their figures flashed as they dodged the fishing line. However, this person was too strong. The fishing line was transparent and strangely fast. In mere moments, the fishing line wrapped around the leg of the Heavenly Book Scholar, who was the weakest among the three. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The fishing line continuously spun around the Heavenly Book Scholar's leg, extending up and deep into his flesh. Blood instantly covered his entire leg. The fishing line was extremely thin and boundlessly sharp. It looked like it would cut off the Heavenly Book Scholar's leg. The Heavenly Book Scholar snorted coldly. Then he opened the folding fan in his hand, and a vast Confucian righteous chi spread out from his body. Kasie. Kai. The fishing line, which was originally only wrapped around Xiaochen's leg, instantly bounced off. Then, he quickly extricated himself and fled far away. The straw raincoat-clad man on the snow python did not show any change in expression. He continued to swing the fishing rod in his hand. Immediately, the fishing line extended infinitely in the air, turning into transparent ribbons dancing in the air. Xiaochen and the other two felt somewhat sullen. They could not bring out their strength and could only evade. This fishing rod was simply too strange. They could not do anything about it. They could only dodge. If they got careless and got entangled in the fishing line, that would be the Heavenly Book Scholar's fate. At this moment, the most important thing was not to let this affect their mental states. The Ninth Prince and the Heavenly Book Scholar felt somewhat frustrated. With their strength restricted, they could only dodge helplessly. This continuously affected their mental states. Xiao Chen's heart remained as calm as still water as he calmly observed the straw raincoat-clad man's actions. He showed a grave expression, not daring to be careless. A six-veined sovereign emperor. Just this cultivation alone placed heavy pressure on Xiao Chen, making it difficult to defeat him. At the same time, Xiao Chen had several doubts in his heart. Were there no older generation experts by the ninth prince's side, guarding him in secret? Or were they already pinned down? Xiao Chen did not know if the expert who covered the small world in this mirror lake was the straw raincoat-clad man, or another expert. Take the bait willingly, the straw raincoat-clad man said softly as Xiao Chen kept guessing. Then he quickly pulled in the fishing line and sank it to the bottom. Mysterious ripples immediately appeared on the water's surface. The fishing line seemed to sink into another space and time, looking incredibly strange. In the next moment, a loud bang rang out, and a ferocious beast was actually reeled in. Fishing alone in the cold river snow, not returning to sleep when the moon sets, the straw raincoat-clad man said softly. Under the conical bamboo hat, a smile appeared on the straw raincoat-clad man's face. With the help of a slender fishing line, the huge ferocious beast was easily pulled up and sent flying towards the three. Even if a strong wind blows in the night, the shore is where my heart is at peace. Beyond the chilly wind and cold shadows, a lone boat accompanied by grass. As the straw raincoat-clad man chanted, not only did the ferocious beast get pulled out, but it also flew around in the air, making the three miserable. All sorts of mysterious phenomena appeared. The night is still, the water is cold, and the fish do not feed. The boat is empty, and the bright moon returns. Boom! This was even more horrifying. A bright moon actually fell out of the water. As it slowly rose, it startled the three. Be careful. I know who he is. He is the White Marsh Beast Empire's imperial teacher, Sikongshu. Xiao Chen showed a grave expression. Before this straw raincoat-clad man brought out his full strength, he had already forced the three into a dangerous situation. Now that this bright moon fell out, it was even more flabbergasting. Just at this moment, a strand of extremely strong soul energy silently shot towards Xiao Chen like a sharp arrow. Dang! When the soul energy struck the reverse scale on Xiao Chen's forehead, it gave off a crisp sound. A ferocious dragon roared and scattered this strand of soul energy. Xiao Chen's expression immediately changed drastically, as this soul energy attack targeted only him. The ninth prince and the heavenly book scholar were not affected. In the end, this assassination was actually aimed at him. Rage. When Xiao Chen understood, he immediately became enraged and snorted coldly. The divine energy in Xiao Chen's body flowed in reverse, turning into demonic qi divine energy. He activated the demonic cloud heaven swallowing art, and demonic qi immediately surged out of his body. The Xiuwu dynasty's sacred tool, the Scarlet Moon, instantly activated. A scarlet moon rose behind Xiao Chen. Then he faced his palms to the sky and held up this vast scarlet moon. Then he smashed it down. Bang! The two bright moons collided. The bright moon that the straw raincoat-clad man held up shattered amid a loud bang. Xiao Chen used the Xiuwu dynasty's sacred tool, the Scarlet Moon, to smash it into smithereens. However, the fishing line took advantage of this opportunity to wrap around Xiao Chen's ankle before extending upwards. In an instant, it firmly bound Xiao Chen. However, the sharp fishing line that could cut into the heavenly book scholar's flesh could not penetrate Xiao Chen's body at all. He had the alloy dragon armor protecting him, so it could not injure him at all. Whoosh! The straw raincoat-clad man stared at Xiao Chen from under the conical bamboo hat on the snow python, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The straw raincoat-clad man pulled ferociously, trying to pull Xiao Chen over. However, just as the straw raincoat-clad man was about to pull, electricity jolted his hand, nearly causing the fishing rod to fall from his grasp. A horrifying bolt of electricity moved along the fishing line, crackling as it flashed. With the support of the alloy dragon armor, the straw raincoat-clad man's fourth-layer thunder, Dao domain reached the might of a fifth-layer thunder Dao domain. Even a six-veined sovereign emperor would suffer significant injuries from this lightning strike, which looked pleasing to the eye. Whoosh! The man in the woven rush raincoat sitting on the snow python gave a muffled groan. He, who had always been like an old fisherman, stood up for the first time. Boom! The instant the straw raincoat-clad man stood up, the horrifying aura of a six-veined sovereign emperor surged out together with the might of his divine seal. The ninth prince and the heavenly book scholar were currently dealing with the attacks of various ferocious beasts and mysterious phenomena. When they saw this scene, they were greatly startled. This was because the straw raincoat-clad old man's sovereign emperor aura headed for Xiaochen. The two of them were only slightly affected. The straw raincoat-clad old man wanted to use the horrifying might and pressure of a six-veined sovereign emperor to shatter Xiaochen's Thunder Dao domain. However, Xiaochen smiled coldly. The royal blue dragon bloodline in his body surged endlessly like a surging river. He did not show any fear when facing this aura. The White Marsh Beast Empire's royal tutor already came out. Where are the experts of my divine dragon empire? Why are you still not coming out? Xiaochen shouted coldly. Then he pressed his tongue against the roof of his mouth and used the three-veined sovereign emperor soul energy that he inherited from an ancient demonic sovereign to detonate the divine lightning talisman in the depths of his soul pool. Immediately, thunderous sounds rumbled endlessly, shaking the entire small world. Up until now, Xiaochen could only use the divine lightning eye to activate the divine lightning talisman that the immortal epic's thunder ancestor left behind. However, the situation forced him to use his three-veined sovereign emperor soul energy and take the risk to activate it. Rumble! The divine lightning talisman instantly erupted. The immortal epic's thunder ancestor's talisman burst out with a frightening might of divine lightning. Xiaochen's every word became thunderous, turning into the sound of divine lightning rampaging in this small world. Electric light flickered all over his body. As the demonic chi driven by the demonic cloud heaven swallowing art's demonic cloud heaven swallowing art, Xiaochen became as terrifying as an ancient thunder god punishing everything in the world. Chapter 2252. Rumble. Thunder boomed endlessly. The explosive power of a three-veined sovereign emperor detonating the divine lightning talisman surpassed Xiaochen's expectations. The divine lightning talisman even went somewhat out of control. Just the sound waves shook the small world. Cracks. A flaw appeared in the small world. The heavenly book scholar looked up and discovered some cracks in the sky flickering with electric light. The heavenly book scholar's eyes immediately lit up with joy. As long as he broke this small world, all the danger would be resolved. At that time, no matter how strong Sikongshu was, he would not dare to linger. Otherwise, it would be problematic if the city guards captured him. When the straw raincoat-clad man on the snow python saw Xiaochen's might, he felt slightly shocked. What surprised the straw raincoat-clad man even more was that Xiaochen had guessed that there were other people here. Even at death's door, you still dare to be so arrogant. Xiaochen, you really don't know what's good for you. Whoosh. Thunder rumbled as the lake water parted. A silver-haired old man emerged like a dragon emerging from the sea. He held a white pearl in his hand as he leaped out and looked coldly at Xiaochen. Xiaochen could clearly sense dragon might in the aura that this old man gave off. If it were someone familiar with the dragon race, they would be able to tell that this was an expert of the silver dragon bloodline of the six-colored divine dragons. A strange look flashed in the heavenly book scholar's eyes. He whispered to the ninth prince, "This person is the Silver Dragon Palace's palace master, the clan head of the Silver Dragon bloodline. He is conferred the title of king in the Divine Dragon Empire, the Silver Dragon King." What? A surprised expression immediately flashed in Wang Yan's eyes. The Silver Dragon King. To think that the clan head of the Divine Dragon Empire disregarded his status and came to Yen City to assassinate Xiaochen. How much trouble did this Xiaochen cause in the Divine Dragon Empire? Xiaochen looked at the silver-haired old man with a cold gaze. Then he said sullenly, "Since when did the Silver Dragon Palace become the Golden Dragon bloodline's lackey?" The silver-haired old man retorted coldly, "You have a sharp tongue. If you are sensible, you will return to the Divine Dragon Empire with this king and meet the Purple Gold Dragon Emperor. Otherwise, you will be disobeying orders. Don't blame me for being merciless." The silver-haired old man saw that Xiao Chun had been tied up by the fishing line of the man in the woven rush raincoat. They only treated him as a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. They didn't give him any face at all. Xiao Chun laughed and said, "What a good disobeying orders. Old thing, listen up. I am now a rank 6 envoy inspector of the Heavenly Alliance. Why do I need to listen to the purple gold dragon emperor's orders? It seems like you intend to resist to the end. Fine, then I won't waste my breath on you." The purpose of these two people was to assassinate Xiao Chun, so they had never thought of reasoning with him. Seeing that Xiao Chun did not comply, the Silver Dragon King's murderous intent soared. "Stop." The ninth prince showed a sullen expression as he said, "One of them is the White Marsh Beast Empire's royal teacher, and the other is the Divine Dragon Empire's Silver Dragon King. However, this is the Yanwu dynasty. To think that they do not care about this prince at all, killing my secret guards on a whim." The man in the woven rush raincoat said calmly, "The two of us were only defending ourselves. The prince's secret guards discovered us and wanted to attack us. I believe the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs will understand. If we offended the prince in any way, we will personally apologize to the Yan Emperor." The moment Wang Yan said that, his face turned green with anger. Even if he was not favored by his imperial father, Wang Yan would not dare to offend him. Even if he was not favored by his father, he was still a prince. To think that these two did not give him any face at all, only saying that they would apologize to the Yan Emperor, completely ignoring him. This humble one is following orders to capture the dragon race criminals. I believe that the prince will not shield me on purpose. Otherwise, if I accidentally injure your highness. The Silver Dragon King smiled coldly. His tone showed that he did not care about the ninth prince at all. In the Silver Dragon King's opinion, this ninth prince was just a child of the younger generation, not qualified to stand on equal footing with him. Furthermore, the two of them came prepared. They knew this ninth prince very well. The person behind them even intended to teach this ninth prince a lesson, making things difficult for him. Hence, the two of them did not fear the ninth prince at all. I, Wang Yan, will interfere in today's matter. If you have the guts, then kill me." Wang Yan raged. His 10 fingers moved rapidly, forming hand seals. In that instant, his 10 fingers flickered with light, and space trembled. The image of the Yan Imperial Sword appeared in front of the ninth prince. However, it was different from the Yan Imperial Sword that Xiao Chun had seen before. Aside from containing the vast holy might of the dynasty, this sword image also contained an incredibly horrifying killing chi. Wang Yan had heard that the royal clan disciples could summon the sword image of the Yan Imperial Sword. Then they could use this sword image to forge their own life secret treasure. In the future, when they ascended to the throne and became the Yan Emperor, they could immediately grasp the Yan Imperial Sword. At that time, their life secret treasure would merge with the Yan Imperial Sword, allowing them to brand the Yan Imperial Sword with their own mark. Xiao Chun felt somewhat surprised. Unexpectedly, the ninth prince was willing to take out the life secret treasure he refined for him in a fit of rage. If this secret treasure was damaged, not only would it harm Xiao Chun, but it would also affect his luck in the dynasty. Sikong, a crack has already appeared in this pocket dimension. We can't delay any longer. The Silver Dragon King frowned slightly as he sent a voice projection. He had not reached the 10th layer Water Dao domain. This small world was formed by the pearl in Xiao Chen's hand, and his Water Dao domain. Once a flaw appeared, it would be difficult to mend it. Understood. I'll stall the ninth prince, and you go kill them. As an outsider, it is not convenient for me to kill a sinner of your dragon clan. The man in the raincoat said indifferently. The Silver Dragon King cursed in his heart. This Sikong Shu has not been putting in much effort. They were waiting for him to show up and kill Xiao Chun. Forget it. None of this is important. What's important is that Xiao Chun must die today. Gotcha. However, just as the straw raincoat-clad man prepared to restrain the ninth prince, Xiao Chun suddenly drew his tyrant saber. The fishing line wrapped around Xiao Chun suddenly snapped. With a slight tremble, the fishing line binding Xiao Chun broke free. Pucci. Caught off guard, Blood leaked out of a corner of Sikongshu's lips. He exclaimed, "My fishing line." The seemingly unremarkable fishing line was actually incredibly sharp. Small perfection sovereign emperor. Small perfection sovereign emperors could not resist this fishing line at all. Even great perfection sovereign emperors could forget about struggling free. Even soul tools could not break it. Sikongshu had gathered all the divine materials in the world, and used his own soul blood to refine it for hundreds of years. However, Xiaochen managed to break it with one saber strike today. Most importantly, this saber could not be considered a soul tool. That's impossible. Even a medial-grade soul tool cannot break my fishing line. Disbelief flashed in the straw raincoat-clad man's eyes. He could not accept this at all. In reality, it was as he said. With just the tyrant saber, Xiaochen would find it very difficult to break this fishing line. However, after Xiaochen used his soul energy to activate the divine lightning talisman in his soul pool, he continuously tried to use the power of the divine lightning to shake the fishing line. The ninth prince had bought Xiaochen a lot of time. By the time the tyrant saber made its move, the divine lightning had already shaken the fishing line. The tyrant saber easily chopped down again. I can't care so much anymore. When the Silver Dragon King saw Sikongshu in a daze, he snorted coldly and charged over alone. The Silver Dragon King held the treasure pearl with his left hand, and his right hand turned into a palm saber as he chopped at Xiaochen. Boom! Before the Silver Dragon King arrived, the dragon might contained in the Silver Dragon King's terrifying cultivation caused Xiaochen's qi and blood to surge, and his internal organs to rupture. Dang! At the critical moment, Wang Yan wielded the Scarlet Yin Imperial Sword, and arrived before Xiaochen. One saber and one sword attacked at the same time. The two blocked the Silver Dragon King's startling strike. However, the two still got knocked back, vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. The difference in cultivation was too great. The Silver Dragon King was a six-vein sovereign emperor, only half a step shy of peak sovereign emperor. Furthermore, as the Silver Dragon King, the resources and accumulations that he could use were not what an ordinary sovereign emperor could compare to. With just one hand, the Silver Dragon King easily knocked back Xiaochen and Wang Yan at the same time. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The Silver Dragon King's expression turned slightly unsightly. To think that he could not severely injure two juniors in one move. Although the Silver Dragon King knocked back Xiaochen and Wang Yan, it was clear that the two still had strength to spare. Too strong. Xiaochen and Wang Yan had the same thought at the same time. This Silver Dragon King's strength was somewhat boundlessly strong. An ordinary six-vein sovereign emperor could not compare to him at all. However, the Silver Dragon King still needed to maintain his small world, and could not use his full power. This gave the two many opportunities. Dang. The Silver Dragon King fought one against two with one hand, showing off his might. However, he could not seriously injure Xiaochen and Wang Yan. After 10 odd moves, he actually started to feel fatigued. However, the Silver Dragon King could not put down his pride and ask Sikongshu for help. This made him feel exceptionally frustrated. Silver Dragon King, you are only a so. You are far from comparable to the White Dragon King. You are not even comparable to the 3 palace masters of my Heaven Dragon Palace. You just live up to your reputation. Xiaochen mocked the Silver Dragon King, trying to provoke the other party into giving up on maintaining his small world. As long as the Silver Dragon King let go, it would immediately startle the entire imperial capital. At that time, he would have truly dodged a calamity. Ninth Prince, you have repeatedly tried to stop me. This king could not bear to injure you. Since you want to force me, then don't blame me for being merciless. The Silver Dragon King was thoroughly enraged. However, he ignored Xiaochen. Just take care of yourself first. Just as the Silver Dragon King was about to attack without caring about anything, a voice suddenly came from the pearl in his hand. Who is it? The Silver Dragon King immediately revealed an extremely surprised expression. Crack. The pearl suddenly shattered. What is a fiend? Idle clouds and wild cranes are impermanent. The lush mountains and clear waters asked the ruler's heart. A resplendent and strange saber light answered the Silver Dragon King. Then a figure leaped out, and the small world completely collapsed. Chapter 2253. What is a demon? Idle clouds and wild cranes are impermanent. Green mountains and clear waters ask the ruler's heart. The person who came was fiendish Saber Shimu's first disciple, Lu Benwei. He finally broke the barrier of this small world from the outside. Gotcha. It looked like the saber would strike the Silver Dragon King and severely injure it. However, the Silver Dragon King was a famous expert, after all. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he turned into a silver dragon image. As if he had teleported, he dodged the strongest attack of the saber. By the time the saber light arrived again, its power had already weakened significantly. Bang! When the saber struck the Silver Dragon King's chest, it gave off a loud clang. However, the saber struck the armor, unable to advance any further. The Silver Dragon King vomited a mouthful of blood as he went flying back and landed on the lake. Another deafening explosion rang out. Before he could gather his strength to counterattack, Lu Benwei had already executed his second move. What is a demon? The fallen flower man stood alone. The tiny rain swallows fly together. A strong wind blew, and the petals filled the sky. The flying leaves fell like rain, walking in the wind, standing alone. This strike stood calmly as the wind and rain stirred up the falling flowers. As the two swallows spread out, it turned into a drop of rain and fell. Lu Benwei spread his arms, and two afterimages flew away like swallows. Then he turned into a drop of pure rain, and fell towards the Silver Dragon King on the lake. Xiaochen was slightly startled when he saw this scene. This scene seemed familiar, yet it was completely different from his memories. Be it the fiendish saber inheritance's first move or the second move, Lu Benwei's comprehension was different from his. The first style he had comprehended was all things rejoicing together. He wanted to be at peace with the clouds, wild cranes, green mountains and clear waters. Everything in the world was at his disposal, and there was no distinction between them. Lu Benwei used this to question the heart of the ruler, to ask himself, and also to ask his opponent. In the second style, what Xiaochen comprehended was a sense of pride, a sense of persistence, and a sense of tyranny that looked down on the nine heavens. Raindrop breaking the vault of heaven. Lu Benwei, on the other hand, comprehended a kind of indifference. Transcendence from the mundane world. The wind blows, the clouds do not sway, my heart is like me, and does not follow the heavens. The two different comprehensions were evenly matched. As long as it was suitable for him, it was fine. After using it, there were two completely different images, causing everyone's eyes to light up. However, given Lu Benwei's current cultivation as a six-vein sovereign emperor, the might of the fiendish saber inheritance was much greater than Xiaochen's. Given Xiaochen's current cultivation, even if he executed the fiendish saber inheritance, he would find it hard to truly injure the Silver Dragon King. But Lu Benwei was different. Gotcha. When this saber strike landed, the Silver Dragon King's armor shattered. The saber light instantly struck the Silver Dragon King. Bang! In the face of adversity, the Silver Dragon King roared ferociously and sent a palm strike. His 5 fingers morphed into a silver dragon claw, and the 5 dragon claws pierced Lu Benwei's chest at the same time. Lu Benwei snorted coldly. He endured the pain and was about to attack again. Suddenly he felt a sense of danger. His figure flashed, and an arc of light flashed. It disappeared from where the Silver Dragon King's head had been. Then it swept up and bound the Silver Dragon King. It was Xikong Shu who calmly made a move and rescued the Silver Dragon King. Then, the snow python entered the lake and disappeared into the distance. Whoosh! Xiaochen's figure flashed, and he landed beside Lu Benwei. When he saw the 5 bloody holes in Lu Benwei's chest, he asked sullenly, "Big brother Lu, are you alright?" "I'm fine. It won't take my life." I underestimated this Silver Dragon King's strength. Lu Benwei sheathed his saber and said calmly, "I'll find a place to treat my injuries first. The small world is already broken. Those two probably won't dare to come again." "Alright." As Xiaochen watched Lu Benwei's figure disappear, he entered deep thought. This big brother Lu is very elusive. Even Xiaochen himself does not know where he usually goes. However, this is fine. Those who want to harm me will find it hard to detect Lu Benwei's existence. If not for Big Brother Lu making a move, I would have been in trouble. Xiao Chen had not expected the Purple Gold Dragon Emperor to be so deranged, sending the Silver Dragon King to kill him. Furthermore, this was in the imperial capital, Yin City, before the 9th prince. That should be Fiendish Saber Shimu's disciple, right? Unexpectedly, Lord Xiao has such an expert protecting you in secret, the 9th prince said as he watched Lu Benwei leave. The 9th prince said with a hint of curiosity in his eyes as he watched Lu Benwei leave. Xiao Chen asked doubtfully. Could it be that the 9th prince does not have any expert guards by his side? This question put Wang Yan in an awkward position, not knowing how to answer. The Heavenly Book scholar smiled bitterly at the side and said, Xiao Chen, even the royal clan has a limited number of great perfection sovereign emperors. How can they arrange for one for every prince? Aside from a few favored princes, the royal clan will not arrange for a great perfection sovereign emperor to protect them. Actually, they use their own influence to recruit them. However, if you want to recruit a great perfection sovereign emperor, you will have to pay a significant price. Even if the 9th prince succeeds in recruiting the great perfection sovereign emperor, the 9th prince can only protect him at important moments. They cannot possibly be by the prince's side at all times. So that is the case. This dispelled Xiao Chen's doubts about why he did not see any experts by Wang Yan's side in the earlier battle. This made sense. Even in Yin City, how many great perfection sovereign emperors could there be? It would be even more difficult for a great perfection sovereign emperor to accompany a prince at all times. What a pity for my brothers. Their deaths were not worth it. Displeasure flashed in Wang Yan's eyes. When the shock waves from the earlier battle swept out, not even the corpses of his secret guards remained. Sorry, I implicated the 9th prince this time. Xiao Chen felt somewhat apologetic. Sikong Shu and the Silver Dragon King's target was him. Those secret guards were just collateral damage. It's not really implicating. In the end, it is because I do not have any authority in the imperial capital. If it were first brother or 8th brother, those two would not dare to mess around. Wang Yan showed a calm expression, not showing any intention of blaming Xiao Chen. The Heavenly Book scholar said from the side, it is possible that there are other princes behind this matter. Without the princes taking care of this, the Heavenly Book scholar would not have been able to deal with this. Without the prince's help, Sikong Shu and the Silver Dragon King would not be able to silently lay a small world in the Mirror Lake. First brother's wedding is approaching, and there are more people from all walks of life in the imperial capital. This is probably just the beginning, Wang Yan said with a drawn-out sigh, not feeling surprised. After some thought, Xiao Chen said, 9th prince, I think I can agree to what you said earlier. When Wang Yan heard that, he asked softly, you mean you agree to come to the ancient Yin Emperor tomb with me? Yes. However, I have a request. What request? Speak. After Xiao Chen finished speaking, the 9th prince thought for a while before saying, all right, I can promise you that. As long as you agree to come to the ancient Yin Emperor tomb with me, you will be my guest. That's good. Goodbye. After Xiao Chen turned around, he quickly left, not lingering. The Heavenly Book scholar and the 9th prince entered deep thought as they watched Xiao Chen leave. Unexpectedly, this is what he needs me to do for him. Changji, is it good for him? The 9th prince Wang Yan asked, feeling confused. The Heavenly Book scholar shook his head and said, there are no benefits at all. He might even end up dead. I cannot figure out this person, nor can I divine. Wang Yan said calmly, it does not matter. Given this, there is no need to worry about him cultivating a demonic Dao cultivation technique. A person who can make such a request would not be in cahoots with those demonic Dao cultivators. 9th prince, which prince do you think is involved this time? Wang Yan replied coldly. Aside from little 13, which other prince would be so bold, daring to make such a rash move in the imperial capital? First brother allied with the smiling daughter pavilion. It looks like he is really anxious. For the sake of gaining help, he does not care about anything else. The Heavenly Book scholar nodded and said, I guessed it earlier as well. However, I did not want Xiaochen to know, so I did not say it. Don't tell Xiaochen about this first. Given his character, I'm afraid that he will seek trouble for little 13 tonight. On the other side, Sikongshu and the Silver Dragon King fled far away from the center of the lake. When he reappeared, he was in a secluded courtyard. There were already several people waiting for a long time in the courtyard. If Xiaochen were here, he would easily recognize two of them. As for the last person, he would probably be able to guess. As Wang Yan had guessed, the youngest of the three was the Yan Emperor's favorite son, the 13th Prince Wang Yi. On his left was Xiaochen's old acquaintance Bai Yunfei, who had the royal bloodline of the Bai's empire. The person on the right was wearing a golden yellow robe with purple patterns embedded in his collar. The purple and gold colors were rather eye-catching. This person was Bai Yunfei's good friend, the famous dragon god crown prince of the divine dragon empire, Qin Ming. Did teacher succeed? Seeing Sikongshu appear, Bai Yunfei's eyes flashed with anticipation, and he hurriedly went up to ask. The nearby Qin Ming seemed to be much calmer, and he already knew the answer in his heart after observing the expressions of the two old men. It failed. He has a great perfection sovereign emperor by his side at all times. To think that the 9th prince even helped him at the crucial moment. Sikongshu and the Silver Dragon King said with somewhat unsightly expressions. After all, 2 six-veined sovereign emperors had gone to kill a junior. No matter how they looked at it, it was extremely embarrassing. However, the 13th Prince Wang Yi heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. If they had really assassinated Xiaochen and investigated the matter, it would have been problematic. The 13th prince stepped forward and said, "Seniors, I already did my best to help with this matter. As for what you promised me..." Before the 13th prince could finish, Qin Ming interrupted. 13th prince, don't worry. Since we are here, we will definitely help the 13th prince ascend to the ceremony. This failure will not affect our relationship. There is no need to worry. The 13th prince smiled and said, "Good. In that case, I can rest assured. You can stay in the imperial capital for now. If you need anything, you can come and look for me at any time." After the 13th prince left, Bai Yunfei said in a flustered and exasperated manner, "If we can't even kill him with this, we will not have another chance in Yan City." Qin Ming said indifferently, "There's no rush. I have a feeling that he will definitely go to the ancient Yan Emperor tomb. At that time, we will have plenty of opportunities to kill him openly." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.